He slaughtered the elite of every major sect, died with a smile on his face, and closed his eyes expecting eternal rest. Instead, he woke up 30 years later in the body of a 23-year-old madman. Zero cultivation and mountains of debt.
Hua Mujin is no longer just a broken heir.
He is Zhongqian, the divine demon,
Borrowing flesh
to settle old scores. 70 years of combat experience, and nothing but a pair of chopsticks. He treats the entire martial world like a tutorial level. The 9 great sects thought they survived. They were wrong. The invoice has finally come due.
This is rebirth of the divine demon.
He died upside down, which is a bold, stylistic choice for the greatest swordsman in history, but honestly, the gravity of the situation demanded it. Zhongqian, the divine demon, stands alone against the entire martial world with glowing red eyes and zero chill, proving that being outnumbered is just a suggestion. He cuts through sect leaders like they are tutorial mobs, grinning with the menacing energy of a man who has already won and is just waiting for the credits. The Namgung patriarch screams insults while bleeding out, because nothing says dignified elders like calling your murderer a bastard right before you both die. His life flashes before his eyes, orphanhood, blood, and the wife he couldn't save, ending with a tearful realization that he actually wanted to live. He wakes up 30 years later in a new body, staring down a merchant heir who thinks he is weak, ready to collect on the 17-year enmity. A family picnic under a blossoming tree, the universe's way of telling us this memory is about to get deleted. It's peaceful, it's warm, and it is absolutely lying to you about how this story ends. Cut to 30 years prior, where Zhongqian stands alone on a battlefield littered with the broken swords of every major sect in the martial world. He isn't just winning, he is conducting a masterclass in why you don't bring a knife to a godfight. The Shaolin abbot and Mount Hua leader watch from the sidelines, realizing their entire coalition is exhausted, while our protagonist is just getting started. The Namgung patriarch screams for immediate execution, which is rich coming from the guy currently losing. Zhongxian's eyes glow red, not because he's evil, but because he's done negotiating. The elders prepare their final stand, chanting prayers like they think divine intervention is going to save them from a man who killed divinity for breakfast. He screams, the ground cracks, and energy blasts fly like confetti at a funeral. The bald monk slams his staff down, creating an explosion that would level a city block. Yet Zhongqian doesn't even flinch because he's seen worse Tuesdays. One elder gets hit so hard he forgets his own name, while another unleashes a green energy blast, screaming about accursed demons. Great monk Haiyan Yu joins the fray, looking stern and powerful, which is code for about to get humbled. Red energy spheres erupt, cloaked figures lunge, and someone screams, "What?" because they just realized their ultimate technique is merely a suggestion to this man. The battlefield is a blur of green and red light, and nobody is having a good time. Zhongxian declares, "It's time to end this," slamming his fist down with enough force to rewrite local geography. The rage is palpable, the energy is catastrophic, and the 9 great sects are finally understanding the concept of regret. Blue lightning crackles as he slashes forward, cleaving through defenses like they're made of wet paper. 2 figures clash in a dimly lit interior, sparks flying, debris raining down, and the sound of breaking bones providing the soundtrack. Multiple energy blasts erupt across the dark field as opponents try everything from plum blossom strikes to thunder rolls. Zhong Qian meets them all with a single blue energy sword strike, clashing against purple blasts with the casual effort of swatting a fly. Sparks shower from the impact, pink petals mix with blood, and a lightning bolt strikes down on a red-haired figure. Zhong Qian screams in agony and rage, blood splattering around him, because even gods feel pain when they're fighting an army. The Shaolin abbot strains to unleash a green strike, but Zhong Qian counters with a torrent of red energy from his bare hand. Two elderly martial artists clash in the air, swords meeting in a dramatic aerial battle that looks expensive to animate. A brutal impact splatters blood across the panel as Zhong Qian grins menacingly, dark tendrils erupting from his body. He says, "Next," because he's treating this apocalypse like a grocery list, and the severely wounded elderly monk screaming in agony agrees. A black mass slams into the surface, a white-haired swordsman leaps with a blue slash, and dark clothing unleashes crackling lightning. A cloaked figure hits an opponent with horrified expression, proving that fear is the only logical response here. Someone gets stabbed, crying out in pain, while the divine demon with glowing red eyes lunges forward with a wide grin. Zhong Qian in red clashes with shadowy figures, surrounded by warriors who are rapidly becoming statistics. A massive explosion rocks the panel as Zhong Qian prepares another strike, his red eyes burning with intent. The narration notes that facing the greatest martial strength under heaven is a bad idea, proven by the chaotic explosion of dark energy. Sect leader Zhang Guang asks if he prepared his grave, only to be told, "It's your grave," as a glowing pink sword swings down. They clash amidst swirling energy and pink petals, which is a beautiful way to describe two men trying to murder each other. Zhong Qian unleashes a powerful attack surrounded by dark tendrils, holding a bloody sword aloft while saying, "Not yet." He draws his blade with a sharp click, and the words "Black Dragon" emblazon across the screen as chaos erupts. The word "execution" appears in large red letters as a figure in a wide-brimmed hat attacks with a bloody sword. The injured figure screams in agony, blood splattering everywhere because the divine demon does not do mercy. Blue energy blasts erupt from the void as a masked figure lunges with a golden weapon. Zhong Qian shatters the environment with a blue attack, gritting his teeth in a battle cry that sounds like tectonic plates grinding together. He unleashes a powerful attack with glowing blue energy, shocking clan patriarch Namgung Huang, who didn't see it coming. Zhong Qian lunges forward, hand reaching out with a golden ring, while shadowy figures unleash torrents of red, sharp tendrils. The Namgung clan patriarch glares with red eyes as dark energy erupts around him. A dismembered limb flies through the air, splattering blood, followed by a red energy blast and a man in a suit getting violently impaled by dark energy. He screams, "Zhong Qian, you filthy demonic bastard!" As unseen forces erupt with blinding light, shadowy figures descend with powerful strikes, blue energy blasting from weapons, and swords slashing through the darkness with lethal precision. A masked swordsman unleashes a blue attack, while a long-haired man lunges in rage amidst swirling energy. Figures are engulfed in blinding blasts, and a dark-haired man with glowing white eyes glares intensely, surrounded by the aftermath of his wrath. The clan patriarch charges through blue flames, eyes narrowed as forbidden energy crackles around him, while our prota cries out in pain. Namgung Huang roars, and Zhong Qian screams with a blood-splattered face, pushing past the limits of human endurance. Blood splatters across a red background as a white blade descends. Two warriors grimace in pain, one roaring while the other coughs up blood as a blade pierces his head. It's messy, it's loud, and it's entirely one-sided. A shadowy monster unleashes destructive energy, while Zhong Qian glares with intense rage as he is violently struck, blood splattering, and a hand drips with blood as it clutches a golden sword hilt, dark tendrils erupting around it. Zhong Qian unleashes dark energy amidst a swirling vortex, followed by a powerful red blast. A figure in a dark robe is surrounded by blood-like tendrils, and a severely wounded warrior stands with his back turned, sword drawn, blood staining his robes. His life flashes before his eyes, brawls for survival, wandering without a home, relying only on himself. He sits on a wooden platform looking at the rain-swept sea, reflecting on a life that was never really his to begin with. He walks through a forest carrying two children, embracing them as they sleep. A woman smiles warmly, and Zhong Qiong cries, his face obscured by shadow. For the first time, he had something to lose, and the universe took it. He whispers, "I wanted to live with you all," as he kneels over a fallen warrior, drawing a sword from their chest. Two martial artists clash one last time, and a long-haired figure stands with head bowed amidst the falling bodies of his enemies. He cries, dirt and tears streaking his face as a dark void appears on a wounded warrior's chest. He kneels in the desolate landscape, head bowed against the sunset. Then, a menacing voice mutters, "What a racket!" He wakes up confused, asking if this is hell, only to be shouted at by a young man claiming his elder brother is alive. A young woman shouts that he's not even direct blood and shouldn't inherit the clan's martial arts anyway. Zhong Chon stares intensely with striking red eyes, processing this new reality. Chong Dobo smirks, proposes a deal, and declares they will duel for the rights. The divine demon has returned, but this time he's dealing with family drama instead of armies. The siblings exclaim in shock that their brother couldn't train due to madness, and the opponent thinks it's an obvious trick. Zhong Qiong just stares forward with determined red eyes, ready to collect on a 17-year enmity. The Qianghua merchant group arrives at the gates like they own the place, which is exactly the problem, because they currently own everything else this clan has left. Bu Choyon stands there looking expensive and dangerous, while Mujin wakes up from his internal reboot realizing he is definitely not in hell, which is a disappointment for everyone expecting a quick exit. Soyeon is already screaming about blood ties and martial arts secrets, delivering the kind of passionate defense that would be inspiring if her brother wasn't currently running on 0 chi and 17 years of bad luck. Dobo lays out a proposal so smug, it loops back around to insulting. If the clan wants to keep its martial arts secrets, someone can step up and duel him for them, right here, right now. The siblings are horrified because their brother hasn't trained in years due to his madness, and Dobo thinks this is an obvious trick designed to save face before the inevitable surrender. But Mujin isn't tricking anyone. He just stares with the deadpan confidence of a man who has killed gods, while Dobo smirks like he's already calculated the insurance payout on this disaster. Dobo struts and postures with the smug energy of a mid-boss who hasn't read the patch notes, gesturing to his entourage and promising the beginner-level embarrassment will be over in a moment. He hasn't actually thrown a technique. He's just monologuing. His siblings remind him, gently, that he has never touched a sword in his life. Mujin's response, "Wait, are you talking about me?" has the energy of a man who forgot which body he's currently wearing, right before he reaches out to summon a blade and swing it anyway. Mujin stares down at his own trembling hand, noting it is frail and weak, and questioning whether it can even hold a sword, while Soyeon bursts into tears because she is convinced this is another madness episode instead of the opening act of a demolition. She begs him to come to his senses, but Dojin is already shaking his head. No, refusing to apologize because he knows something is different about the way Mujin is standing right now. Mujin sighs, asking for understanding, because explaining that he is a 70-year-old war criminal in a 23-year-old body is probably not the best icebreaker for a family reunion. He still feels the sensation of the 7 wounds fist, the same technique that broke him at age 6, and his eyes glow red with the kind of rage that usually precedes a total party wipe. Masak lunges forward, shouting, "Sir!" loud enough to rattle the courtyard, and when he asks how Mujin could possibly know him, Mujin just says, "You seem to know me," with the energy of a final boss reveal. Flashback to age 6, young Mujin asks for a fair duel, and young Dobo stands there with the smug confidence of a child who has never lost a fight he didn't start. They clash in a storm of energy and shattered ice, but this time, Mujin doesn't hold back, delivering a punch that carries 17 years of unpaid invoices and significant emotional damage. Dobo gets kicked with a sinister grin on his face, realizing too late that the madman he crippled is now moving with the precision of someone who has studied every mistake Dobo ever made. Multiple fists strike downward in a blur of pink and blue energy, but Mujin meets them head-on, clashing with an intensity that suggests he is done playing the role of the victim. Dobo unleashes a blast of inner energy, calling Mujin a fool, and for once the math is on his side. The young master, untrained, outmatched, takes the technique full force and is sent reeling. The energy clashes, and it's Mujin who gets sent flying, crashing through the courtyard with a pained grunt, his body tossed like a rag doll by an attack he has no answer for yet. Mujin, bleeding from the mouth, sails through the courtyard trees, weakly mouthing a single disbelieving name. The man who overwhelmed him, Dobo, just looms there, cocky and clearly winning, with the smug calm of a senior who finally got his moment. Mujin coughs up blood, defiant through the pain, while Dobo grins with crackling energy, winding up to strike again with the smug satisfaction of a man who thinks the ledger is tipped in his favor. A powerful blue energy blast erupts from Dobo's fist, cutting through the air with a slash that leaves no room for negotiation, mercy, or future medical bills for the Qianghua merchant group. Mujin contemplates the situation, noting that if they think his condition is just an after effect, they are severely underestimating the son of the Qianghua merchant group who just got wrecked. He asks if the incident ended with just a scolding, walking away with the casual swagger of someone who just cleared a tutorial level without breaking a sweat or his new shoes. He looks down with sorrow, remembering the son who became the reason for his parents' death, carrying the weight of a past life that no one else in this courtyard can possibly understand. Soyeon is crying, covering her face, while Dojin stands beside her, both of them watching the tall figure in the dark robe who just changed the entire trajectory of their lives in 10 seconds. A severely wounded warrior clutches his sword, a metaphor for Mujin's current state, while the siblings look at each other with tired resentment, wondering if this new brother is a blessing or a curse. Energy blasts illuminate the purple sky as a red-clad figure lunges downward, signaling that the duel may be over, but the consequences are just beginning to ripple through the martial world. Mujin sits in meditation, surrounded by glowing orange energy, smiling serenely because just closing his eyes is enough to keep the demons at bay, even if the merchants are still outside. A powerful energy blast erupts from his figure, illuminating the background with intense golden light, proving that the heavenly martial body is not just a curse, but a weapon waiting to be forged. The building explodes in flames, and Masok looks back in panic as dark energy erupts behind him, reminding us that stability in this clan is about as permanent as a soap opera plot twist. Elder Zhou Huanbong, clan elder, lunges with fierce rage, then immediately pulls back to say he's kidding, and the pulse is stronger than ever, gaslighting the entire courtyard into believing this was all a wellness check. He shouts about his special constitution while an older man laughs maniacally, asking if he's laughing because he's crazy or because he just realized the divine demon is back in business. Screams of rage echo through the hall as Masok yells for the young master to pull himself together, unaware that the man screaming is actually enjoying the feeling of having a functioning nervous system. Mujin looks forward with a neutral expression, thinking this is really bad, while Elder Zhou Huanbong looks down in shock, realizing the symptoms they feared were actually the cure arriving late. Meet the only man in Sichuan who treats a 66-kilogram iron sword like a slightly heavy umbrella. The bandages are tight, the rain is relentless, and our boy is about to reinvent martial arts from scratch. The sky is crying, which is fitting because Masok is currently having a meltdown over his young master's mental state. He screams for Mujin to look at himself, unaware that the person looking back has 70 years of combat experience packed into a 23-year-old body. Masok asks where they would even get the money for a proper weapon, which is a fair question given the clan's credit score is currently lower than their dignity. Lightning strikes, energy crackles, and the universe reminds us that poverty is just another boss fight. Mujin doesn't answer. He just glares with the smug confidence of a man who knows exactly how this ends. He tells the big guy to take a message to his leader, because apparently we are skipping the negotiation phase and going straight to the violence. The guard tells him to cut the stupid talk and get inside if he's here to gamble. Mujin asks what he's looking at and then delivers a punch that rhymes with trucks and carries roughly that much kinetic energy. The impact sound effect is just pure trauma. A golden weapon spins through the air, because why use one method when you can use 3? The older swordsman asks what's wrong, and the messenger stammers that this crazy person wants to see the sect leader. Spoiler alert, he does not want a meeting. Mujin stands stoically as coins spin in the air between them, a visual metaphor for how little he cares about their economy. The guard realizes he's a customer, or at least a problem, and slams his fist down. The table breaks. The vibe breaks harder. He says there's no need to see the leader anymore, which is code for, "I'm handling this myself." We cut to a lone figure on a balcony overlooking the city because every protagonist needs a moment to stare at the rain and contemplate their debt spreadsheet. Inside the cavern, masked figures walk toward a fire, looking like they lost a bet with a costume department. One of them lunges forward with a sinister grin, glowing eyes promising nothing good for anyone involved. This is the welcoming committee, and they are rude. They converse in the dim light while a giant hand looms in the background, which is either a metaphor or a very large enemy. A golden X-shaped weapon spins rapidly, because this faction believes in excessive accessorizing. 3 figures stand ready, waiting for the main event. A fist radiates power, and the enemy claims he won't let Mujin leech off them like his parents did. Mujin replies that he doesn't have any parents, which is technically true but emotionally devastating. The scarred man behind him looks distressed by the lack of sentimentality. Mujin says they'll begin, and the fight erupts. A lone swordsman takes on several masked figures, drawing his blade with a determined grunt. The motion is a blur, the stakes are high, and the choreography is about to get very expensive for the bad guys. Swings connect, muscles tense, and a black, viscous substance wipes across the panel. We see a close-up of a bandaged forearm moving faster than the eye can track. This isn't just fighting, it's efficiency testing, and the results are coming in hot. Mujin lunges with a lightning strike, rage evident in his posture. The opponent gasps in pain, terrified eyes wide as the impact lands. A stylized character for blood flashes on screen, because sometimes the artist just wants you to know it hurt. He tells the falling enemy that he's got soft bones for his size, which is the most backhanded compliment in martial arts history. A swordsman in red lunges, but Mujin swings his gleaming blade with immense force, red energy emanating from the strike like a warning label. An unseen force strikes with sharp, glowing lines. The masked figure shouts, "You rat!" as he attacks, but Mujin just shouts, "Right!" and unleashes a glowing strike. It's less of a duel and more of a correction, delivered with extreme prejudice. A man in red is struck with such force that debris flies everywhere. 2 warriors clash amidst a flurry of blood, one shouting, "Darn you!" in pure frustration. The anger is real, but the skill gap is wider than the Yomwa clan's debt. A masked figure with white hair lunges with a scythe-like weapon, creating a shockwave. A black-clad figure kicks with dark energy trailing behind, while another cloaked figure leaps through the air, attacking a swordsman who cries out in pain. It's chaotic, it's messy, it's perfect. A warrior in a red cape is struck by a fiery projectile, tumbling through the air. Another warrior spits blood as he's hit, rage evident in his eyes. 2 figures fall through the air, engaged in a fierce aerial battle that defies gravity and common sense. Mujin kneels on the ground, sardonically asking if they can't tell he's fine. His opponent tries to dodge a purple energy blast, but the runes swirl and the smoke clears. The power is overwhelming, but Mujin is already calculating the next move. A fist slams down, and someone exclaims in surprise about a coin. Mujin demands to talk to the leader again, because he's persistent if nothing else. He draws his blade, preparing for a fight that was inevitable from the moment he walked in. A cloaked figure swings a sword, emitting bright orange energy. 2 masked swordsmen clash blades amidst magical light, and another lunges forward with a purple energy slash. The visual effects budget is being spent wisely on these sparkles. 2 figures clash with glowing energy swords in a dark void. A close-up shows Mujin gripping his sword with intense focus, his determination palpable. They clash again, drawing blood in a violent confrontation that leaves no room for mercy. A figure violently slashes, drawing blood. Mujin warns that if you underestimate Chopsticks, you might end up shitting yourself. He unleashes a blinding blue energy attack from his sword, proving that his threat was not hyperbole, but a promise. Mujin lunges forward with determination, his cape billowing. He stands amidst debris, sword stained in blood. A fist connects with a violent thwack, and the screen shakes with the impact. The message is received, loud and clear. A wounded man coughs blood as Mujin stands over him. He lunges forward with a glowing blue blade, shouting that their jokes end here. The purple energy wreathes his sword, and the finality of the statement hangs in the air like smoke. Mujin glares intensely, his eyes glowing purple. An opponent is thrown into the air, emitting a purple aura, while another shouts in disbelief that he dodged. A powerful fist glowing with dark energy is thrown forward, sealing the deal with extreme prejudice. A leg descends rapidly, kicking with immense force. A dark figure with glowing red eyes unleashes an energy blast, shattering the surroundings. A bound individual screams in agony, blood splattering, as Mujin grimly tells them to talk if they want to live. Shrouded in red energy, he demands a loan. Then, in a chibi-style twist, he laughs maniacally while holding two thin rods. The divine demon has spoken, and his first official act as clan head is aggressive accounting. The 17-year enmity has begun. There's a specific kind of silence that only exists when someone is about to make a very expensive mistake with a very heavy object. This is that silence. Dojin and Soyeon are watching from the shadows, which is adorable until you realize they're witnessing their brother attempt to lift a sword that weighs more than their entire childhood trauma. Mujin stands before the forge, hands pressed together, looking less like a blacksmith and more like a man trying to mentally intimidate metal into becoming useful. He grips the hilt. The sword does not move. The sword is currently winning this argument by default because physics is a harsh mistress who does not care about your past life credentials. 50 Jin. He can't even raise 50 Jin. The divine demon who once cleaved armies in half is now being humbled by a piece of iron that refuses to acknowledge his authority. He uses both hands. It's not dignified. It's not the hidden dragon of Sichuan. It's just a guy struggling with gravity, but at least the sword is finally off the ground. He draws the blade. The motion is slow, deliberate, and entirely devoid of the flashy chi effects he used to take for granted. This is manual labor now, and he is not happy about it. But then the breathing kicks in. The Donggong method isn't about sitting still, it's about moving until your body forgets how to be weak. And suddenly, the air starts to listen. A slash. Not just a swing, but a wave of blue energy that cuts through the room like it's apologizing for existing. The wall doesn't stand a chance, and neither does his previous limitation. The energy blast catches him off guard, but he leans into it. This is the moment the tutorial ends. The system didn't give him a cheat code, it gave him a workout plan, and he just finished the first set. Amazing! He says it with the same tone someone uses when they find a coupon that actually works. It's not joy, it's the satisfaction of a problem being solved through brute force and stubbornness. We start with the moment the universe decided this training room had served its purpose and was ready for immediate demolition. Mujin layers breathing onto the swing, turning a basic sword form into a kinetic engine that screams. It begins now while his bandaged arms glow with blue energy. He spins into a vortex of power, eyes glowing red with pain because his heavenly martial body treats demonic-style cultivation like a personal insult it needs to fight back against. Red and blue energies clash inside his meridians, creating an internal explosion that would kill a normal cultivator, but just makes our guy grit his teeth and swing harder. The energy beams collide in a chaotic display of light and debris, proving that physics is merely a suggestion when you have 70 years of combat experience in a 23-year-old body. He gets thrown through the air by the backlash, lands hard, and immediately faces down a massive red energy sphere with the calm demeanor of someone who has seen worse Tuesdays. Mujin lunges forward, sword piercing through the explosive burst of red energy as he declares that no martial art can stand before this edge, which is a bold claim for a man currently on fire. A monstrous skeletal creature lunges at him. Bamboo spears rain from the ceiling, and he deflects the entire barrage while struggling against thick ropes, because why make it easy? He unleashes a green energy attack that shatters the complexity of his opponent's techniques, proving that natural counterplay beats complicated tricks every single time, especially when you are the one defining nature. His fist crashes through the ground. He lunges with glowing blue sword intent, and the sheer force of his determination makes the very air scream in protest at the unfairness of it all. Floating logs emit red light as he screams in rage about how much bullshit this process is, then unleashes a powerful strike that splits the very concept of patience in two. He declares that even a floating leaf on water will be split by this blade, then raises his sword high enough to split the sky itself, because subtlety died with his previous life. The massive glowing sword swings with immense force, creating a blinding flash that leaves him floating in the air with arms outstretched, gripping the hilt as the sound of impact echoes forever. In the quiet aftermath, a memory surfaces of his master asking if he memorized the forms, admitting he couldn't carry it on anymore, and passing the torch to a child who didn't yet know the weight. The cloaked figure gestures to the seated child. Energy glows from a reaching hand, and a young boy laughs joyfully as the legacy is transferred without words, only trust. The master's voice echoes that at 100,000 swings you emit sword aura, and at 1,000,000 few will match you under heaven, a promise that now feels less like poetry and more like a receipt. Back in the present, a severely injured Mujin warns his opponent to hit him once more and die, then immediately sits down to eat rice because even divine demons need calories after breaking reality. He reaches for meat, tells his worried servant to prepare beef tomorrow because it builds muscle better, and casually mentions he will borrow more money later because priorities are a flexible concept. He eats while his companion stares in shock at the guy who couldn't function like a normal person yesterday, now discussing dietary macros with the confidence of a fitness influencer who just broke a wall. He tells them to worry about one thing, ignoring the distress of Masak, who thinks he is abandoning the Yolmwa legacy, while sitting calmly with his brother in a room that no longer has walls. Mujin calls it ridiculous. He smiles smugly as he exhales and dismisses the yapping servant with a sardonic command to get out, because he has achieved donjon formation and they have not. He stands sternly in his red robe, shadow looming behind him, while elsewhere an elderly man sips tea and predicts that after this, the heir will come for the Yolm Emperor's inheritance. The elder looks on with apprehension as two young disciples watch in awe through the doorway, witnessing the moment the sleeping dragon of Seo Chang finally woke up and decided to redecorate. Our boy is screaming. Not from battle, from acupuncture. Elder Zhou Huanbong has apparently decided that the best way to treat a man who just rebuilt his cultivation from zero is to turn him into a human pincushion while the sun sets dramatically behind him. Elder Zhou Huanbong is clutching his own forehead in distress, which is never the energy you want from the man holding the needles. He's watching Mujin's meridians do something that shouldn't happen in one session, and his entire medical framework is filing for unemployment. We cut back to the real emotional core of this chapter, someone crying out in despair, tears streaming, with the kind of anguish that only comes from reading your family's debt spreadsheet. The 17-year Enmity isn't just a title, it's a quarterly earnings report from hell. Mujin has finally reached the point where he can swing a 110 gyun iron sword with one hand, which is the martial arts equivalent of graduating from a Honda Civic to a main battle tank. The sweat dripping from his arm suggests this was not a casual Tuesday. There he stands in the rain, bandaged like a mummy who skipped leg day, gripping a sword that weighs more than most people's entire gym membership. The exhaustion is real, the determination is more real. The fashion choices are, at minimum, committed. Dojin and Soyeon appear in their standard configuration, two children in dark robes, one with hands clasped like he's already praying for his brother's sanity, framed by bamboo that has definitely seen more emotional stability than this family. Soyeon absolutely unloads. She's crying, she's shouting, she's blaming Mujin for their parents' deaths with the kind of emotional precision that only comes from rehearsing this speech for years. The sepia-toned flashback behind her confirms this trauma has a director's cut. Mujin looks down at this explosion of grief and says, "Well, I'll be," with the emotional processing speed of someone who has already died once and considers most problems temporary. He's not dismissive, he's just operating on a different timeline than everyone else. He places a hand on both their heads with the gentle authority of a man who has killed sect masters but is now learning that parenting is harder. The children look up with concern and resignation, which is the exact facial expression of anyone who has ever been comforted by someone clearly out of their depth. Dojin practices martial arts, while Soyeon watches with a critical expression that says she has already mentally written his performance review. She informs him that he looks nothing like Brother Mujin's stance, which is the sibling equivalent of comparing your brother's art to the fridge masterpiece. Mujin demonstrates proper form while the kids observe, and the visual of a man who once destroyed the 9 great sects now teaching children how to stretch properly is the kind of tonal whiplash this series serves without warning. Like this, stretch more, the most devastatingly calm instruction in Miram. Dojin balances a wooden bucket on his head while holding bamboo poles, following instructions about breathing and not rushing, which is essentially the cultivation equivalent of don't spill the soup while running a marathon. The determination in his small frame is doing heavy lifting. A cloaked figure emanates glowing blue aura while discussing the breathing method of the pupil, which sounds like a rejected title track from a Cultivation concept album. The visual is dramatic. The terminology is doing its best to sound ancient and mysterious. The narrator is taking notes for his next K-pop bias wrecking analysis. Mujin holds his sword and declares, "Don't worry about anything, I will definitely win," with a smile that manages to be simultaneously reassuring and deeply unsettling. This is the face of a man who has already calculated 17 different ways to kill his opponent, and is now choosing the most efficient one. The siblings kneel facing each other, having a conversation that boils down to, nothing will happen, right? I guess so, with the optimistic energy of two children who have definitely had things happen before. The smile is brave, the uncertainty is louder. Mujin stands in the rain with his face heavily bandaged, looking forward with the determination of a man who has decided that today is the day he finishes his accounting homework and also possibly destroys a merchant guild. The hydrangeas in the foreground are having a better day than anyone in this panel. A figure shrouded in red energy lunges forward with a clenched fist, and the visual language here is saying that Mujin's training has reached the point where his energy manifestation looks like a warning label. The red aura is not subtle. The red aura is not trying to be subtle. A glowing red object crashes down, cracking the ground with the kind of impact that Korean sound designers apparently needed 2 syllables to properly capture. The debris flies. The ground surrenders. The panel's onomatopoeia is doing emotional labor. Mujin swings his massive sword while shards of red light explode around him, and the composition here is doing the most. A bandaged warrior, a weapon that shouldn't be wieldable, energy that shouldn't be manifesting, all in one frame that screams budget well spent and also maybe therapy needed. He swings again in midair, surrounded by dark fire, and the series has officially committed to the aesthetic of a man who looks like he lost a fight with a medical supply cabinet but is winning every actual fight that matters. The dynamic pose is generous. The animators, if this ever gets animated, will need hazard pay. A masked figure holds 2 swords while glowing blue energy emanates from them, and the text explains that in awakening such pupil, something martial art classification. The exposition is doing its best. The visuals are carrying. The narrator is mentally checking how many more technique names he needs to memorize before the exam. Extreme close-up of a masked man with glowing red eyes, face contorted in rage, and this is the divine demon peeking through the Mujin costume. The red eyes are a past life callback. The rage is a past life callback. The mask is just practical rain protection that accidentally looks incredibly ominous. Zhongxian, the actual divine demon, not the borrowed body, gets engulfed in a red energy blast, body contorted in pain, and this is the flashback that explains why he can't just use his old techniques. The heavenly martial body rejects demonic arts with the enthusiasm of a content filter, rejecting a word that rhymes with truck. Mujin swings his massive sword downward in torrential rain amidst crumbling ruins, and the panel composition is giving main character privileges with the subtlety of a twice comeback stage. The rain is dramatic. The ruins are dramatic. The man swinging a sword that weighs more than a small motorcycle is, frankly, showing off. He lunges forward with flames curling around his outstretched arm, and the ferocity in his expression says that the Donggon training has officially paid off. The energy is flowing. The sword is cooperating. The man who had no chi 3 weeks ago is now producing fire effects that would make a BTS stage designer jealous. Someone asks if young Master Hua is still doing that, with the surprised energy of a servant who has just discovered his employer has been training in secret for 3 weeks and has somehow rebuilt his entire cultivation base. The sunset in the background is pretty. The revelation is prettier. We return to the hero panel, Mujin screaming through acupuncture, while Elder Zhou Huanbong watches with a smug expression that says he enjoys this part of his job too much. The 17-year enmity is not just about Chongdobo, it's about every indignity this body has endured, every treatment that failed, every moment of madness that wasn't actually madness, but blocked meridians screaming for help. Masak arrives with food, calling out young master with the cheerful obliviousness of a man who has not yet seen the training room wall. The wooden box probably contains something nutritious. The emotional support is definitely nutritious. Masak's entire existence is a support build, and we respect it. Our protagonist cries out in anguish against a vibrant sunset, and the composition is doing the full shonen emotional beat, the pain of progress, the cost of recovery, the screaming that happens when your body rebuilds what was broken for 17 years. The sunset is not sympathetic. The sunset is just there, being pretty. Mujin grins triumphantly with his massive sword after a battle, and the grin says he's done. The training arc is complete. The wall is destroyed. The meridians are open. The man who woke up with no chi now has a functional dantian and a body that can actually cultivate. Patch note 0.7 character build updated from hard mode to slightly less hard mode. Mujin stares forward with intense brown eyes, lower face covered in white bandages, and the expression is doing that thing where it looks calm but is actually planning violence at a spreadsheet level. The mask is practical. The eyes are the real weapon. The elders are about to find out both. Mujin stands in a dusty courtyard with Masak and announces there are guests, with the energy of a man who has been expecting these particular guests for roughly 17 years. The training dummies in the background are silent witnesses. The dust is atmospheric. The impending violence is on schedule. Our loyal servant with blonde hair smiles smugly and says, Sir Warriors, with the condescending energy of someone who has definitely read the Merchant Guild's personal record handbook on how to address people you plan to bankrupt. The clouds in the background are fluffy. The situation is not. Mujin stretches with his massive sword and says it needs to be quite spacious, with the casual tone of a man who is about to use a training ground the way most people use a demolition site. The bandages are still on. The confidence is new. The sword has not gotten any lighter. A menacing figure with glowing red eyes glares, while a hand holds a golden object, and the panel is giving villain introduction with the subtlety of a lay seraphim bass drop. The red eyes are back. The golden object is probably important. The narrator notes that this uses the same visual language as the Divine Demon flashback, which is either foreshadowing or an indication of the artist's very specific aesthetic preference. Mujin grins widely while looking to the side, castle in the background, and the grin says he has just realized something that everyone else will realize too late. The expression is doing that thing where it looks friendly but is actually a threat delivered with dental work. The castle is scenic. The mood is scenic in a different way. Kaelboin, commander of the Yomwa clan's death squad, salutes with his hand raised, and the visual is doing its best to look military and organized, despite the fact that this clan was functionally bankrupt 3 chapters ago. The salute is crisp. The situation is not. The death squad is about to have their first real assignment in years. 2 men stand with their backs to the viewer, one with bandages wrapped around his head and arms, and someone remarks that the madness has erupted again. The irony is thick enough to cut with the sword Mujin is definitely holding. The madness they're seeing is actually competence. The competence looks like madness because they haven't seen it before. Mujin looks up with a pained expression as a shadowy figure looms over him, speaking about bottling things up, being something only cowards do, and the dialogue is doing that Muram thing where emotional confrontation is indistinguishable from combat preparation. The bandages are still there. The vulnerability is new. The shadowy figure is probably about to learn that Mujin's definition of not bottling up is significantly more violent than most. Mujin stands with his massive sword in a courtyard full of men. Kaelboin asks, "So what are you suggesting?" with the tone of someone who already knows the answer and is just waiting for the other person to say it out loud so he can respond with violence. The group of 5 men is arranged as if numbers matter. They do not matter. Kaelboin glares forward as a large blade approaches him, and the panel is doing that thing where it frames the weapon as the real character, while the human is just the obstacle. The goatee says veteran. The glare says not veteran enough. The blade says math problem incoming. Mujin lunges forward with his sword shield, while another figure prepares to defend from behind, and the action choreography is giving us the first real exchange of the duel. The bandages are still on. The form is now correct. The breathing technique that took 3 weeks to master is about to be field-tested against someone who has been training for decades. Kaelboin speaks about the world tilting. with a sinister grin that says he has been waiting for this moment to test the young master, and is about to discover that the young master has been waiting longer. The graying hair is supposed to indicate wisdom. The grin is about to indicate miscalculation. Mujin lunges forward with a wide, unsettling grin, his opponent's face obscured by his own dark hair, and the panel is giving us the moment where the mask slips, not the physical mask, the emotional one. This is Zhang Xian enjoying combat. This is the divine demon remembering what it feels like to be alive and also winning. The grin is not Mujin's. The grin is older than the body it's wearing. Mujin looks up at the bright, cloud-filled sky with bandages around his forearms and neck, and the expression is doing that post-combat processing thing where the body is still, but the mind is already on the next problem. The sky is blue. The clouds are fluffy. The 17-year invoice is almost ready for delivery. A hand grips a weapon as a speech bubble states that regret won't do you any good, and the panel is giving us the thematic thesis of this entire arc in one frame. The Chonghua Merchant Group is about to learn this lesson. Chongdobo is about to learn this lesson. The narrator is taking bets on who learns it hardest. Boyne swings a massive angular sword in a wide arc, creating a powerful gust of wind that the Korean sound design team apparently rendered as 2 syllables of pure aerodynamic violence. The swing is impressive. The swing is also the last thing he does before he discovers that Mujin's concept of sword range includes the space where he is currently standing. The sword strike creates a shockwave, dust and debris flying, and the onomatopoeia is doing the heavy lifting of suggesting impact without us having to read it literally. The panel is all about the aftermath of force meeting force. The aftermath is about to favor one side significantly. Mujin speaks with a determined expression, glowing sword in hand, purple hair somehow happening, and the visual has shifted into full power fantasy mode. The bandages are still there for continuity. The energy is new for progression. The purple hair is probably just the lighting, but we're not ruling out a hidden transformation mechanic. 2 chibi-style characters ask where their brother is, and the tonal whiplash from dramatic combat to cute concern is exactly the kind of emotional manipulation this series runs on. The standing character is worried. The crouching character is worried. The audience is worried that the answer involves more bandages and screaming. The Chonghua Merchant Group calls themselves vicious snakes, which is rich coming from people who weaponize debt like it's a martial art form. Dojin and Soyeon are asleep, blissfully unaware that their brother is about to settle a 17-year invoice with extreme prejudice and 0 paperwork. Mujin finishes his tea like he's not heading into a duel that could end his lineage, because panic is for people who haven't already won in their head. His eye narrows with the specific intensity of a man who has killed gods and is now mildly annoyed by merchants, and the atmosphere drops 10 degrees. Mujin asks if he looks dashing, and Maesok confirms it with the dry honesty of a man who knows aesthetics won't save him from a sword to the gut. The duel begins with Boyne swinging wildly while Mujin stands there bandaged and bored, declaring he doesn't feel regret because he's already calculated the outcome. Red energy flares, the sword glows, and the ground cracks under the weight of a technique that was invented before Boyne's grandfather learned to tie his shoes. Boyne launches a massive energy slash, but Mujin deflects it with the casual ease of someone swatting away a fly that owes him money. Boyne screams at him to use his sword, completely missing the point that Mujin is fighting without one, just to prove how little effort this requires. Bandaged hands grip the hilt. The impact lands with a sickening crunch, and Boyne realizes too late that mercy was never part of this transaction. Mujin swings the massive iron blade overhead, the air screaming in protest as he delivers a strike that carries 17 years of accumulated interest. Boyne yells for him to know his place, which is hilarious considering he's currently falling through the air thanks to a superior tactical position. Blue energy erupts from Mujin's body, a starburst of pure dominance that tells everyone watching, this isn't a duel, it's an eviction notice. Boyne swings his glowing red sword in panic, but Mujin steps in with a punch that carries more emotional weight than the entire clan's history. Blood sprays, jaws break, and the sound of impact echoes through the courtyard like a gavel slamming down on a case that was never close. A red energy blast connects with Keelboin's face, sending him flying back with black liquid pouring from his mouth because dignity has left the building. Mujin clenches his fist and declares, "Things will be different now," flexing with the smug confidence of a man who just balanced the books with violence. The watching clansmen stare in shock, realizing the young master they wrote off as a madman just dismantled their entire security detail with bare hands and attitude. Keelboin hits the ground hard, his sword flying away as Mujin stands there hands on hips, looking up at the sky like he's checking the weather. Someone screams "coward," and Mujin asks how so, with the genuine curiosity of a man who doesn't understand why losing hurts people's feelings. Keelboin kneels, bleeding from the leg, while Mujin's gaze remains steady and clear, proving the madness was never in the mind, just the meridians. They stand in the courtyard, the tension thick enough to cut with a spoon, while Masak clasps his hands in worry because he knows what comes next. Keelboin claims he was going to half-kill him, but Mujin swings his blade with such force that the threat becomes a laughable understatement of reality. They brag about hiring a master as if theft is a resume booster, completely missing that Mujin doesn't care about their credentials, only their collateral. He closes his eyes and resolves to smash them anyway, because when you have the power of a divine demon, diplomacy is just a delay tactic. The duel ends not with a whimper, but with a system notification that sounds suspiciously like a cash register opening in an empty bank vault. Our boy lunges with the kind of predatory grace that suggests he has killed gods before breakfast and is currently just warming up for the real work. He swings the iron sword like it weighs nothing, which is impressive considering the thing is basically a portable anvil with a handle attached for convenience. The impact creates a shockwave that probably violates several local noise ordinances, sending debris flying in every direction except toward the man who caused it. His opponent gets launched backward with the aerodynamic efficiency of a ragdoll thrown by a disgruntled toddler, blood spraying in a pattern that says, "Game over." Mujin doesn't stop to pose, because posing is for people who need validation, and he is too busy dismantling the entire Qianghua Merchant Group's confidence interval. He strikes with the precision of a surgeon who has decided that anesthesia is optional and mercy is a luxury item he cannot currently afford. The glowing red eyes return for a brief cameo, reminding everyone present that the sweet young master they knew is actually a dormant volcano wearing a human suit. Blue energy clashes with red aura in a light show that would be beautiful if it weren't actively trying to erase several people from existence simultaneously. He descends like a judgment from heaven, or perhaps more accurately, like a tax audit that you definitely did not prepare for and cannot appeal. The energy blasts converge with the subtlety of a freight train collision, turning the courtyard into a no-go zone for anyone who values their internal organs. Red and blue pillars of power crash together in a void that exists solely to contain the sheer amount of narrative weight being dropped on these poor extras. Mujin swings with eyes glowing red, channeling the divine demon's rage through a body that is technically still recovering from 17 years of neglect. But once the dust settles, the genre shifts from action thriller to bureaucratic drama, because apparently saving your clan requires filing paperwork before lunch. Gamblers in the courtyard are already calculating odds on whether the young master will survive the next 5 minutes, which is a bet I would never take. Steward Du offers a lollipop with the nervous energy of a man who knows he is about to be asked for money he does not have. A woman with a red umbrella arrives with the stern expression of someone who has come to collect a debt and has no intention of accepting excuses. Mujin points a finger and vows that the Qianghua Merchant Company will never get their hands on the Yomhua family's secrets, which lands with the calm menace of a man who already knows how this ends. The Gongdong faction representative clenches his fist in anger, realizing that his political maneuvering has been outpaced by a teenager with a heavy sword. Mujin leaps into the air, his blade glowing with blue energy, proving that the best defense against corporate hostility is overwhelming physical force. The enemy smirks, claiming they sent items as a gift, but we all know that in this world, gifts usually come with hidden invoices and lethal consequences. The massive sword descends from the sky like a divine verdict, causing the Yomhua clan members to question if their young master is actually a sword saint. Steward Du admits he was joking about running away, which is the kind of lie we tell ourselves when we are terrified but trying to look brave. Mujin smiles smugly, holding his sword with the confidence of a man who knows the outcome before the first move is even made. Masak screams in disbelief at the speed of the attack, while Mujin grits his teeth, focusing entirely on the task of dismantling his opposition. Energy slashes cut through the air with violent precision, creating a visual spectacle that is equal parts beautiful and terrifying for anyone standing nearby. The crowd celebrates with joyful expressions, unaware that they are cheering for a man who is currently calculating how much gold he can extort from their bosses. A narrator box declares Dobo's martial arts negligible compared to what is coming, which is the literary equivalent of telling someone to bring an umbrella to a hurricane. Figures fall through the air amidst swirling dust and debris, victims of a power gap that no amount of political maneuvering can bridge. Mujin looks strained but determined, while Chief Steward Du admits he thought the young master would be bested immediately, proving that elders are always wrong about everything. He declares that past strength does not matter, only the present resolve, which is a very inspiring speech for a man who is about to ask for a ledger. And now, with the violence concluded, Steward Du trembles as he hands over the records, because the divine demon who destroyed 9 sects is now doing accounts receivable. The clash is so violent it feels like the artist forgot to use layers. 2 warriors collide with glowing blades and expressions that suggest this is personal, not just procedural. Our boy's eyes are glowing red, his hair is wild, and he is swinging a sword with the kind of rage usually reserved for people who cut in line at the convenience store. The opponent screams in shock because he just realized that the madman he bullied 17 years ago has returned with a fully loaded grudge and 0 patience. Blood splatters across the panel like an abstract art project gone wrong. The impact is so severe, it creates a blinding white light that obscures everything except the sheer satisfaction of revenge. He follows up with a downward strike that grits teeth and shatters bones. This isn't a duel anymore, it is an execution performed by someone who remembers every single second of the pain. Red energy erupts from his hand as he kicks the air itself. The choreography here is less about martial arts and more about expressing 17 years of suppressed fury through kinetic violence. A blinding explosion separates them, but the momentum doesn't stop. The opponent falls through the air, surrounded by a red aura that looks less like power and more like panic setting in. Mujin leaps through the flurry of energy bursts, landing a kick that sends shockwaves through the ground. He is moving faster than the eye can track, which is bad news for anyone standing nearby. Bu Shuoyan screams in pure rage, her face contorted in a fury that suggests she knows exactly how badly this is going to end for her side. The dust settles to reveal Mujin standing amidst a splatter of black ink, looking utterly unreadable behind his mask. Dobo lies in a pool of blood at his feet, proving the point definitively. He holds the bloodied sword with casual indifference while his opponent screams in agony, pulled down by an unseen force. The power gap here is not just physical, it is existential. Bu Shuoyan screams in shock, her eyes wide with terror as she realizes the young master they dismissed as broken is actually the most dangerous person in the room. Mujin stands with his hand on his hip, looking stern and completely unbothered by the chaos he just caused. He is done playing the victim. Now he is collecting the debt. An older man gestures dismissively, noting that the match was over long ago. He recognizes the futility of resistance when facing someone who fights with the weight of a past life behind every swing. Bu Shuoyan stares in disbelief, asking if he would really do this to the head of a 5-year-old child who knew no martial arts. She is trying to shame him, but he is beyond shame. Mujin replies with glowing red eyes and a demonic aura, stating that this is merely the closure of a grudge from 17 years ago. He is not angry, he is balanced. Bu Shuoyan kneels in anguish, crying out his name as the reality of their defeat sets in. The 17-year enmity is not just a title, it is the invoice he just paid in full. In the courtyard, Mujin lunges forward with shocking speed while bystanders react in alarm. His fist clenches with intense blue energy, radiating a determination that silences the entire crowd. Steward Du looks up in surprise, a tear rolling down his cheek as he is addressed by his title. Even the clan elders are struggling to process the fact that their useless young master just became their savior. Mujin asks with a sinister smile if the gold entrusted to him has already been spent. He is pivoting from vengeance to accounting with the seamless grace of a man who knows exactly what he wants. Two elders discuss their financial troubles while Mujin walks past them, carrying his massive sword with a smirk. He mentions stopping by the Bangho sect again, because why solve one problem when you can solve three? He declares that if anyone ever tries to split him from his two younger siblings, they will regret it. His eyes glare with enraged intensity, streaked with blood and dirt, promising violence to anyone who threatens his new family. Dojin sits on a rock, declaring he cannot forgive them, while Soyeon pulls on Mujin's hair with a cheerful, "Oh dear." The contrast between their trauma and their current safety is the only peace Mujin needs. The act ends with a desolate mountain landscape and a sound effect that echoes into the distance. The debt is collected, the grudge is settled, and now he has 4 ugly brothers to recruit. It begins on a single word, now. Our boy has decided that waiting for paperwork is for people who don't have a sword and a grudge. He sits there with glowing red eyes and a sword resting on his shoulder like it's a pillow, radiating the kind of calm that makes seasoned killers check their wills. The Bangho sect leader thinks he bought his life with gold, but Mujin reminds him that mercy was never part of the package deal for the rest of the room. The elders scream in distress as the reality sets in. They are not negotiating with a young master. They are bargaining with a natural disaster wearing human skin. Mujin walks out into the sunlight with Masak trailing behind, leaving the carnage inside because he has already mentally moved on to the next item on his agenda. He grins with the smug satisfaction of a man who just turned a loan shark's entire treasury into his personal piggy bank without breaking a single sweat. Chief Steward Du tries to warn him about the social sect's Death Black Crow, crying out in anguish because he knows what comes next, but Mujin is already 3 steps ahead. Mujin asks if they mean the guy with pitch-black fingers, treating a notorious assassin like a minor inconvenience rather than a lethal threat to his entire clan. The elder screams again because this level of casual disregard for mortal danger is not normal behavior for a 23-year-old heir who is supposed to be broken. Mujin ignores the panic and orders tender beef for dinner, reminding everyone that his siblings need to eat well when they return from their training trip. He walks away toward the sunset, a lone swordsman with long black hair and a destiny that is rapidly outpacing his ability to explain it to anyone. The observers wonder if this is really the same young master they knew, because the man who just emptied a sect's vault looks nothing like the madman they remembered. Meanwhile, a hired hand questions why his employer is so talkative, unaware that silence is usually the last thing you hear before the divine demon decides you're redundant. Bu Shoyon, stern and red-haired, holds a dark object, her expression suggesting she is done with games and ready to deliver a message that will change everything. Maps and cubic objects sit in a dimly lit room, representing the cold, calculated machinery of the merchant guild that is finally waking up to the threat in Sichuan. Zhangtai spots something that makes his gold earrings tremble with genuine confusion, which is a rare look for a man who usually treats panic as a lifestyle choice. Mujin's eyes flare red because the folding screen in front of him isn't just art, it is screaming ancient sword intent directly into his meridians like a cursed pop-up ad. He moves before anyone can process the threat, stomping forward with the kind of aggressive grace that says he has already decided how this fight ends and nobody else gets a vote. The room screams his name in pure terror because they just watched their young master turn a decorative screen into a combat zone, proving once again that the Phoenix of Sichuan does not do subtle. The Yomla clan's reputation used to be fire and blood. Now it's just fire, because the new head is technically a madman with a sword he can't lift. But Mujin isn't lifting it anymore. He's dragging it behind him like a shopping cart full of regrets, and the merchant guilds are starting to notice the wheels don't squeak. Elder Zhou Huanbong is having a panic attack because assassins from the Qianghua Merchant Guild just ambushed the clan gates. This is Tuesday for them now. Night in the bamboo forest, and the clan's old guard is already neck-deep in an ambush. Steel flashes between the stalks. This was supposed to be a quiet killing, and it is rapidly becoming anything but. Elder Zhou and Chief Steward Du refuse to go quietly. One of the attackers learns the hard way that fine robes and bravado do not, in fact, protect a man from an old steward's blade. Two old men who have buried more enemies than these assassins have years between them go to work. The attackers brought knives to a fight against veterans who treat retirement as a suggestion. An attacker hits the ground hard enough to reconsider his life choices. Chief Steward Du doesn't even look down at him. He's already turning to meet the next blade. The masked attackers spread out with their own brand of chaos, one of them barking orders to leave a single kid alive and kill the rest. Chief Steward Du's answer to that suggestion is, predictably, violence. Dojin and Soyeon are caught in the crossfire, and that is the one thing this world does not get to do. Mujin isn't on the scene yet, but he's already moving fast, and he is done being patient. He moves faster than the eye can track, a red blur cutting through the assassins like they're made of paper. The Mad Demon nickname isn't just for show anymore. The massive iron sword swings once, creating a shockwave that clears the entire courtyard. It's not elegant, it's efficient, and it's terrifyingly loud. He doesn't just defeat them, he dismantles them. Heads roll, bodies fly, and the bamboo forest becomes a crime scene before anyone can blink. The last assassin tries to run. Mujin doesn't let him. He sends a palm strike through the air that hits harder than most people's entire martial arts career. When the dust settles, Mujin stands alone in the wreckage. His eyes glow red, not with rage, but with the cold calculation of a man who just balanced his books. Dojin and Soyeon stare at him. Not with fear, but with something new, respect. Mujin pats Dojin's head and says he did well. It's the first honest thing he's said all week. The last attacker faces Mujin directly in the bamboo dark, finding out the hard way that this clan head doesn't just talk about power, he demonstrates it by turning assassins into confetti. Mujin interrogates the survivor. He wants names. Specifically, he wants to know who hired these amateurs. The answer is Bu Choyeon, and she just made herself his next project. He lets the survivor go with a message, tell Bu Choyeon that the divine demon is coming for her, and he doesn't mean it as a compliment. The aftermath of a massacre that wasn't even close to being a fight. Mujin stands there, not a hair out of place, while the last assassin bows in terrified submission. But let's rewind to how we got here. The rumor mill is spinning wild theories about the return of some lost talent, and Mujin just stares into the middle distance with that deadpan expression that says he's already calculated your expiration date. Masok bursts in shouting for the young master like he's late for a raid boss, but Mujin just slaps a guy across the face with the casual indifference of someone swatting a fly. It's not violence, it's administrative correction. Later, he's soaking in a bath, contemplating whether he's projecting his past trauma onto two children who definitely don't need that kind of baggage. He holds a glowing orb of energy like it's a stress ball he forgot to squeeze. He announces he'll personally train the kids starting tomorrow. One of the onlookers looks nervous, sweating, because he knows personal training from this man usually involves breaking bones before fixing them. In the courtyard, he explains a movement technique that freezes opponents in place. Soyeon asks how he has combat experience if Elder Joe said he was useless, and he just coughs awkwardly and suggests they skip to sparring. The kids attack with surprising ferocity. Dojin kicks him in the chest, and Mujin's eye twitches in genuine shock. He wonders if they're really from a martial clan or if they're just too young to know fear. He sighs, realizing his master must have had a hard time raising him too. Then he smiles, a rare, soft expression, and tells his master he probably suffered enough watching him grow up. Back to training. He swings a massive iron sword one-handed, creating red energy slashes that cut the air itself. He's not just lifting weight, he's rewriting the physics of the room with every swing. He leaps into the air, sword overhead, silhouetted against the sunset. Meanwhile, a panicked man flies backward through the air, screaming that good work isn't enough payment for nearly dying. Steward Du and Elder Joe Hwanbong look distressed, realizing they've been outsourced by their own clan head. Mujin calmly tells them only he can treat the young master, which is a polite way of saying, stay out of my way. He kicks a guard flying, then smirks with glowing red eyes and a demonic aura that screams, I am not the protagonist you think I am. It's the kind of smile that makes villains check their life insurance policies. A few days ago, a blonde-haired man claims to be a miracle healer, famous for positive energy healing. Mujin looks at him with the curiosity of a cat watching a mouse try to negotiate. Mujin peers through a door gap, eyes glowing red behind a mask, watching the elders discuss the situation. Steward Du and Yong-Su, a Taoist, look on, unaware that the patient is currently planning a hostile takeover of their sanity. Mujin looms over the elderly healer, eyes glowing white, warning him that there's no turning back. Then he presses a blade to the man's neck, because negotiation is faster when you remove the option of refusal. He strikes down a monk, sending him flying. Another elder screams as a massive blade slams down in front of him. It's not a duel, it's a demolition project with a human face. Someone shouts to stop him, but Mujin just throws a heavy iron weight onto a kneeling man. The impact is less martial arts move and more industrial accident. His eyes narrow, intense, and cold. A figure is struck with immense force, head snapping back. The sound effect implies a level of structural damage that requires a contractor, not a doctor. An elder panics, realizing the beard he was admiring is fake. Mujin smiles confidently, the kind of smile that says, "I knew, and I enjoyed watching you realize it." Silhouettes shout about guts and swindling. Mujin grins menacingly, eyes glowing red again, surrounded by red energy. He's enjoying this far more than a sane person should. He threatens to cut off a few things, then adds that he'll charge for useless limbs and manhood. The elder begs for mercy, realizing that financial ruin is the least of his worries right now. Mujin mocks him for getting conned so badly. The figures bow deeply in submission, tongues hanging out in exhaustion. It's the universal sign for, "Please don't kill me, I'm already dead inside." Mujin turns his back on his subordinates, telling them to stay home and not cause trouble. Masak bows deeply, yelling, "Yes, sir!" with the enthusiasm of a man who just avoided a fate worse than death. He stands with his back to the viewer, massive sword strapped on, long black hair flowing. He faces a middle-aged man in a town square, the wind picking up around them like a dramatic filter just turned on. He observes a luxurious four-horse carriage, noting the lavish interior decor. He's not impressed by the wealth, he's assessing the asset value. This is a man who sees a carriage and thinks liquidation. He tells the driver to wake him when they arrive, then lies down to sleep. He closes his eyes, calm and collected, because he knows the next part of a journey won't require his conscious attention. Yong-Su steps out of the carriage. In the forest, Kaol-Muk waits, bald head gleaming, thick beard framing a face that says, "I lift heavy things and break other things." Kaol-Muk grits his teeth in frustration. He looms over Mujin, who is lying on the ground, red X marking on his chest glowing. It looks bad until you remember who's lying there. Mujin strikes, knocking the muscular man back. Then a metallic coil constricts his neck, trapping him against a wall. The pressure is immense, but his expression remains deadpan. He's not scared, he's annoyed. He stabs his massive iron sword through Kaol-Muk's chest, asking casually if they've arrived yet. Kaol-Muk screams in pain, struck by a blow that sends him flying across the room. The sword doesn't care about your feelings. Kaol-Muk is knocked backward, flying through the air. He reaches forward with a menacing expression, enveloped in purple energy, but it's too little, too late. The boss fight ended before the health bar appeared. Mujin lunges forward, surrounded by explosive white and red light. He grins with glowing red eyes, demonic aura swirling around him, and says, "Let's see what you've got." The divine demon has landed. The tea house gossip mill is running hot, and the consensus is that someone just dropped from the sky like a meteor made of bad decisions. Our boy stands there radiating enough red aura to power a small city, looking at his opponents with the casual interest of a man checking his grocery list. The Zhongshan Four Demons arrive, which is a fancy way of saying four guys who look like they haven't seen a mirror since the Ming Dynasty decided to show up. Mujin takes one look at their demonic energy and decides it's less terrifying ancient powers, and more aesthetic choice with poor hygiene standards. He swings that 100-kilogram iron sword like it's a fly swatter, and the resulting impact sends Kaol-Muk flying with the grace of a discarded ragdoll. The other brothers watch in horror as their leader tries to block a strike that carries more kinetic energy than their entire life savings combined. Mujin smiles, and it's not a nice smile. It's the kind of smile that says he's about to teach them a lesson in physics they didn't sign up for. He dismisses their demonic arts as nothing special, then proceeds to knock Kaol-Muk backward with such force that gravity files a formal complaint. Dongjuk and No-Sak try to intervene, but Mujin moves through them like a ghost, delivering rapid-fire strikes that leave them wondering where their ribs went. Zhang Tai gets caught in the crossfire, taking a hit that sends him spinning into next week while his gold earrings probably question their life choices. Mujin stands there, completely unbothered, wondering if he should finish the job or just let them marinate in their own failure for a bit. Kaol Mook, realizing he has been thoroughly outclassed, drops to his knees in submission, because even demons know when to fold their hand. Mujin critiques their demonic energy as ridiculous, which is the ultimate insult in Miram circles, like telling a chef their water is too wet. The four brothers pledge loyalty on the spot, because nothing builds team spirit quite like getting beaten into unconsciousness by a guy with a ponytail. They travel together now, with Mujin asking why they keep stopping, unaware that he has accidentally assembled the most dysfunctional hours department in Sichuan. He asks who they're calling boss, and they beg him to take care of them, proving that fear is a much faster bonding agent than trust. Word spreads through Seo Chang about the young master who trounced professional assassins, earning him the title the Sleeping Dragon of Seo Chang. The carriage arrives at the estate gates, and the air suddenly gets heavy enough to crush a lung. This isn't a social call. It's an inspection by someone who remembers when this clan actually mattered. The local guards are sweating through their robes because they know exactly who just stepped out of that vehicle. Mujin doesn't flinch, he just walks forward like he owns the pavement beneath his feet. Bisojin steps up with a sword at his hip and a question on his lips, trying to figure out if this is a trap. Mujin cuts him off with a single word that carries more weight than any threat could. Mujin sighs because he knows what comes next. Another political headache disguised as a diplomatic meeting. His eyes go cold, the kind of stare that makes grown men check their wills for typos. Sojin accuses him of running with demonic users, which is technically true but misses the point entirely. The four brothers stand behind Mujin, radiating enough bad energy to curdle milk in the next province. Sojin sneers at the idea of losing to such scum, completely unaware that he is currently standing in the blast zone of a man who used to eat sect leaders for breakfast. Young-soo looks like he wants to vanish into the floorboards. Mujin tells his brothers to stand down because he prefers to handle insults personally. He leaps into the air with the grace of a predator who has already decided how this ends. He blocks the strike with his massive iron sword and swings back with zero hesitation. The blue energy trail says everything about his current mood, absolutely done with this nonsense. He critiques Sojin's sword style mid-fight, noting the lack of strength with the casual arrogance of a master teacher. Then he hits him hard enough to reset his entire worldview in a single blow. Sojin goes flying backward as Mujin unleashes a burst of energy that clears the courtyard. It's not just power, it's a statement that says, "Try me again and see what happens." Mujin declares it over before Sojin even hits the ground, swinging his sword down with finality. The debris flies everywhere, but the message lands harder than the steel ever could. Sojin is blasted across the room, crashing into the wall with a dignity-shattering thud. Mujin stands there, back turned, looking like he just finished swatting a particularly annoying fly. When Sojin mentions his grandfather crying in his grave, Mujin's eyes glow red with genuine malice. He promises to make sure the old man hears the screams from right beside him, and you believe him. The demonic aura swirls around him as he grins like a shark that just smelled blood in the water. The laugh that echoes across the sky isn't happy, it's the sound of a door closing forever. The town below feels the impact, unaware that the sleeping dragon of Seo Chang just spread its wings and burned the bridge behind it. If you've ever had to remind someone who holds the leash, drop alphas in the comments. The Rising Dragon Festival begins, and while everyone else is watching the tournament brackets, our protagonist is in a storage room conducting what can only be described as an aggressive asset review. Yang-soo, the fake Taoist, thought he'd outsmart the guy who killed 30 men with chopsticks. He did not. Mujin smiles like a man who has just found the receipt. He walks out of that treasure room with a grin that says, "I didn't take everything. I took everything that mattered, and the gold crates behind him are already being loaded." He holds up one finger like a professor about to explain something profound. What he's about to explain is that the Qianghua Merchant Group's monopoly just got audited. The looting crew works efficiently. One merchant heir with a high ponytail orders them to leave nothing behind, which is ironic because the only person leaving nothing behind was Mujin when he walked in. Mujin pauses, stares at a folding screen, and asks Yong-su if it's just his imagination. It is not his imagination. That screen is a Jong-so-san artifact worth at least 90 gold. He offers the screen to the elder, but before the old man can refuse, a muffled scream comes from off-panel, "This greedy brat." That's the sound of a man who just realized Mujin's generosity is a tax. Mujin gestures toward a carriage loaded with gold and tells an attendant to load it up. The attendant bows so deeply he might not come back up. "Okay, let's move out," he shouts with the enthusiasm of a man who just won the lottery and also caused the lottery to file a police report. The carriage speeds away while one merchant screams into the void, "You've robbed me enough already." To which the correct response is, he hasn't actually, he's just getting started. The fake Taoist collapses in tears, asking the heavens why they are so merciless. "Sir, the heavens didn't do this. A 23-year-old with a 100 kiloju sword did." We cut back to the Flamehua clan estate. It's looking less like a ruin and more like a headquarters. The renovations are coming along nicely, mostly because the financing just got restructured. Masak asks Mujin if he killed anyone for the gold. Mujin doesn't answer. That's its own answer, and it's the correct one for the audience to fill in. A cloaked associate turns to Masak and asks how old the people over there look. Masak, ever the reliable read, gives his assessment, the kind of guy who doesn't get invited to parties, but he's loyal. Masak nervously says he'll tell the others that they'd like that. Mujin smirks. The translation, "I have just become your problem's problem." Someone pleads with Mujin not to hit these people. Mujin says nothing. His expression says, "I'll decide who gets hit and when." This is standard operating procedure at this point. "The young master has arrived," announces a servant. Mujin walks in with the deadpan of someone who has done this before and will do it again because the paperwork never ends. An unseen speaker introduces the 3 merchant group leaders who supported the clan. This is the political piece. Mujin is about to turn creditors into allies. Peng Quan, the Pengyang merchant leader, looks stern. He's been squeezed by the Cheonghua merchant group and doesn't know if this young clan head can help. He's about to find out. Dong Guanyeo and Huang Youcheng laugh and greet Mujin warmly. He returns the greeting with a formal bow that looks polite but reads as, "I know exactly how much you're owed." Chief Steward Du gestures nervously as the conversation turns to repayment. The elders are worried because they know the numbers. Mujin is calm because he knows the numbers and the loopholes. A bearded merchant leader congratulates Mujin on awakening. Mujin responds with the coldest "thank you" in Sichuan history, then immediately asks for the total debt figure. Huang Youcheng states the debt, 3,200 nyang for Golden Finance Manor. Mujin's eye goes sharp. He does the math in his head and comes to a conclusion. The Cheonghua merchant group is going to pay for this, one way or another. The merchants explain that the Cheonghua group even stole their branch managers. "We no longer have the strength to endure," says one, his hand trembling over a teacup. Enter stage left, our protagonist. Mujin, with the politeness of a man who has already filed the paperwork, says, "We are deeply grateful for your generosity." Translation, "I'm going to fix this, and when I do, you'll remember I said, please." He slams his hand on the floor and declares, "I will repay everything." The room goes quiet. This is not a promise, it's a spoiler for the next several chapters. And then he looks up with glowing red eyes, and the merchants realize that the awakened young masters might have levels they weren't prepared for. The rest of the conversation is going to go his way. Chapter 17 opens with Mujin repeating his declaration, "I will repay everything," but now his eyes are literally glowing. The merchant leaders have gone from curious to terrified in the span of a single breath. Steward Du loses it when he hears the plan. Do you even know who's backing those bastards? It's the Kong Tong sect, one of the strongest in the entire Murim. He's sweating. Mujin is not. Mujin's response, "Oh, so those old coots are backing them?" He says it like he just found out the neighbor's dog has been digging in his garden. The elders nearly faint. He takes a sip of tea and says, "As I thought, a sleeping dragon has truly awakened." He's talking about himself in the third person, but he's earned it. The tea didn't complain. The elder shouts, "Young Master Mujin," in that tone that means, "Please don't do something insane." Mujin sighs. Good grief, you haven't stopped nagging since earlier. The dynamic is set. He shrugs and says, "Well, we'll see how it goes." This is the man who has already decided it will go exactly as he planned. He's just being polite about the foregone conclusion. Mujin introduces new warriors to the clan. The camera doesn't show them yet, but the elders' expressions tell you everything. These are not normal fighters. These are the 4 demon brothers. Kale Muk, the eldest, bows and says, "Please look after us," with the sincerity of a man who is beaten into submission and has decided this is actually a pretty good job. "Here's something even more surprising," Mujin says, giving a thumbs up. The elders do not look ready for more surprises. They get them anyway. Several guards physically restrain Kale Muk from doing whatever he was about to do. The scene is chaos. Mujin watches like a man who planned this chaos and is now enjoying the show. One of the elders shouts, "Young Master Mujin, do you not know the fierce reputation of the Zhongshan's 4 demons?" He listens. Then he ignores the question entirely. Mujin lays down the law. If I approve, they stay. If I don't, they're kicked out. Simple, clear, no appeals process. The 4 demon brothers suddenly look very cooperative. Someone shouts in shock, "Jay Jang Sozin!" Mujin casually explains that the folding screen is worth at least 90 gold even at a discount. The room has a collective aneurysm. Hua Dojin and Hua Soyum stand side by side, looking serious. They're not in the line of fire yet, but they're watching, they're learning. The next generation is taking notes. Mujin crosses his arms and announces, "Starting today, we begin special physical training." This is not a suggestion. The training will involve heavy sacks, duck walks, and regret. The hero panel, a man stands beside a massive tied-up sack. Mujin waits with his arms crossed. This is the training equipment. It weighs more than some of his fighters do after a meal. Dojin asks why their sack looks so small, maybe 15 kilograms. One of the 4 demon brothers laughs nervously and says this sack would need 2 men to lift together. The gap in expectations is the point. Mujin glares with glowing red eyes and makes it clear they will train until they can lift it, or they will spar with him. The choice is between suffering and suffering. Kale Muk hoists a sack onto his shoulders with a grunt. The sack is bigger than he is. He is a demon arts practitioner who has seen battle, and now he's a pack mule for a 23-year-old. Mujin asks, "4 demons, are you playing around?" The brothers freeze. The camera catches their shock. They were not playing. They were about to die of effort. The extreme close-up of Mujin's glowing red eye. "If you don't want to, then spar with me." That's the threat equivalent of, you can pay the fine or take the test. Nobody takes the test. The training ground becomes a scene of men carrying sacks that weigh more than their dignity. Kale Muk shouts, "If you decide to lift it, you can lift it." This philosophy applies to both sacks and merchant guilds. Mujin laughs maniacally. "Good! Now start sitting and standing. 200 repetitions. The training montage is complete. The Rising Dragon Festival may be happening elsewhere, but here in this courtyard, the real dragon is being forged. The sound of a man who has decided that rest is a luxury he can no longer afford rings out, screaming at people to push faster, because training all day is apparently just a warm-up. Zheng Tai is carrying a sack that weighs more than his self-esteem, while Mujin stands there with the casual cruelty of a personal trainer who knows you're not quitting until you pass out or die. Kale Muk is having an existential crisis about why his muscles are burning, which is a valid question when your boss treats gravity like a suggestion and pain like a motivational poster. Dojin and Soyeon are struggling under sacks that look like they contain bricks, while Kale Muk threatens anyone who complains with death, which is technically against ours policy but effective for morale. Mujin looks at their pathetic stamina with the cold judgment of a god who forgot what it felt like to be human, then tells them they will become one with the rice sacks until he says otherwise. He smiles that terrifying smile that means he's enjoying this, then adds that anyone who unties the sack will have their life untied as well, which is a metaphor so sharp it cuts both ways. For a second, the rage drops, and he thinks about her face, wondering if she would recognize the monster he's becoming to protect the family she left behind, before Kale Muk screams for his mother. A servant asks if he wants bath water, and he walks away without answering, because admitting he needs comfort would break the illusion that he is made of iron and spite rather than bone and memory. Later, the clan eats in silence, carrying their sacks even at the table, because Mujin has decided that digestion is secondary to conditioning, and that hunger is just another muscle to be trained. The four demon brothers whisper among themselves, realizing this training is harder than anything their previous master put them through, which is saying something considering their previous master was a demon. Then comes the duck walk. Mujin shouts quack, and the most feared warriors in Sichuan waddle across the courtyard like disgraced poultry, while elders watch in horror at the degradation of martial dignity. Mujin watches the kids keeping up better than expected, and for the first time, he smirks not with cruelty, but with pride, because they are surviving the hell he built for them without breaking. The training moves to the river, where the current is strong enough to crush bones, and Mujin stands on the bank like a statue, watching them fight the water instead of fighting each other. Soyeon sees the waterfall and gets excited, forgetting for a second that this is a death trap, while Dojin worries that her speech has changed from fearful to fierce, which is exactly the point. Mujin leaps ahead into the rapids, leaving the others behind, because a leader doesn't just give orders, he demonstrates that the impossible is merely a matter of perspective and poor planning. Nosak and Cheolmuk debate whether jumping is suicide or survival, concluding that staying here is worse, because Mujin's patience has a shorter fuse than their ability to swim upstream. Soyeon declares she is a warrior of the Yeomwa clan, and jumps first, followed by Dojin, because fear is temporary, but family shame is eternal, and neither of them intends to be the latter. Mujin swims against the current tied to a barrel, screaming in agony as the water tries to drown him. Because Donggong Cultivation doesn't care if you're tired, it only cares if you're moving. He tells himself he can do it, that even he can survive this, because the divine demon didn't conquer the world by quitting when the water got cold, and neither will Hua Mujin. He sinks into the deep blue, tied to a stone, letting the pressure crush him until he breaks or becomes something stronger, because whatever he's forging down here in the dark isn't born, it's earned. A figure climbs a cliff with the casual grace of someone who has already decided gravity is optional. The pack on their back suggests they are carrying more than just supplies, probably the entire weight of this clan's future. But before we get to the summit, let's rewind to why our protagonist looks like he just lost an argument with a tsunami. One moment he is calm, the next he is being swept away by a torrent of water and red visual effects that scream plot convenience. The river does not care about his cultivation level. It sweeps him away while Dojin screams in the background because nothing says family bonding like watching your brother get dragged underwater by a current that has clearly taken personal offense. Enter one of the four demon brothers, lunging into the fray with a barrel on his back and a grin that suggests he enjoys drowning slightly less than everyone else. He grabs Mujin because, apparently, saving the clan head is part of the job description now. Mujin, however, is not interested in being saved. He is interested in breathing. He shouts instructions through a mouthful of river water, demanding that Dojin inhale deeply and grip his arm because panic is for amateurs and drowning is for people who don't have a plan. The result is less graceful rescue and more violent ejection from the water. Mujin lands on a cliff edge with the poise of a cat that has just decided it is done with swimming, while the rest of the party looks on in varying states of shock and admiration. Dojin thanks him for saving him, which is rich considering Mujin basically used him as a human anchor to stop himself from floating away. Mujin dismisses it with a strained look that says, "I am fine, but my dignity is currently drying off in the sun." He checks on Dojin, ensuring the boy is unhurt, while staring into the middle distance with that signature deadpan expression. It is the look of a man who has just survived a river and is now mentally calculating how many more disasters he can fit into Tuesday. He declares that they cannot remain children forever, and that he will stay with them to the end. Dojin responds with equal determination, because if you are going to be dragged through a river, you might as well commit to the character development arc. Back on dry land, Elder Zhou Huanbong discusses matters with Steward Du, while someone grips a rock wall with the intensity of someone who has just realized that climbing is not a hobby, but a lifestyle choice. The mountain does not care about their politics. Meanwhile, the training continues. Men scale a cliff face with weighted training sacks roped to their backs, while Mujin shouts that falling means you will not even be able to gather your bones. This is not a drill, this is a hostile takeover of their physical limits. Dongjok watches in horror, convinced that Mujin has finally lost his mind, which, to be fair, is a reasonable conclusion when your boss treats gravity like a suggestion and pain like a minor inconvenience. A green energy blast erupts because subtlety is dead. Men scream in agony as sacks are thrust at them and impacts land with brutal efficiency. Zhang Tai grits his teeth, wondering what exactly he signed up for, while another man begs for mercy. The answer is no, because mercy does not build muscle mass. A middle-aged man pleads for his life, sweating profusely, while Zhang Tai curses under his breath. The training is working, mostly because everyone is too terrified to quit. This is how you build a loyal army, through fear and heavy rocks. The act opens on a trainee lashed to a heap of weighted sacks, looking less like a warrior and more like a man losing an argument with gravity. He asks if anyone thinks he enjoys this, the universal cry of every recruit who just wanted a quiet Tuesday. He admits he wanted to quit being a warrior years ago, a confession that lands with the emotional weight of 1,000 rejected job applications. The ropes are tight, but the existential dread is tighter, and honestly, we respect the honesty. Zhang Tai, the brother with the gold earrings and the attitude problem, smugly asks if he was afraid of being beaten to death for speaking up. Nosak, the youngest, narrows his eyes and threatens murder, because subtlety is clearly not in the family budget. The top-noted man tries to mediate, asking if anyone is even listening, while another figure looks down in exhausted silence. It is the classic training montage dynamic, one guy yelling, one guy suffering, and everyone else wondering why they signed up for this. Zhang Tai bellows at someone for not running, while Dojin, straining under his own training sack, gasps out that they'll have to stake their lives on it. The kid is committing to the bit, weighted load and all. Guards go flying across the room, crashing into bundles with the grace of discarded laundry. The impact sounds like a drum solo gone wrong, and suddenly the hallway is less of a corridor and more of a bowling alley for human projectiles. The four demon brothers march forward carrying massive sacks, looking like a moving storage unit with anger issues. Soyeon, completely done with the cardio, asks Elder Joe to carry her, proving that even in a martial arts epic, some people just want a piggyback ride. A middle-aged onlooker looks startled, while Mujin calls out to Soyeon with genuine anxiety, his cold mask cracking for once over a child, because watching your clan head panic like this is not in the standard military manual. Dojin and Soyeon watch with intense, sweating focus, while a young woman gasps in shock. Two figures slide backward across the ground, defeated by gravity and probably bad life choices, creating a scene that is equal parts comedy and tactical retreat. A young boy asks if the rope-bound figures are death row prisoners, which is a fair question given the aesthetic. They're not. They're three recruits sprinting under massive weighted training sacks, while a voice declares that no one gets left behind, turning a brutal conditioning drill into a bizarre team-building exercise. A man hauls himself up a rope, head thrown back with the strain of a pull-up drill that screams bad idea in any language. Zhang Tai stands nearby, weighted sack roped to his back, still looking solemn, because even mid-boot camp, he maintains the dignity of a man who knows he is right. A figure moves with blurring speed, followed by a fist striking with rage. Kael Muk, the bald brother, shouts that if you do not want to live as a warrior, then do not start, delivering the harshest hours feedback in Miram history. Sacks move with violent momentum, while Kael Muk strains under the weight of a giant bundle, grunting with effort. The sheer physicality of this training suggests that the Yomwa clan does not believe in light weights or easy days. A fist punches forward with explosive force, shocking Mujin, who watches with wide eyes. Kaol Mook and Zhang Tai stand by barrels, discussing the situation now that the initial chaos has settled into a manageable level of despair. Zhang Tai yells at his brother for ignoring reality, while an unseen voice asks if they really think they can become strong this way. A bound figure trembles on the floor, encapsulating the entire emotional journey of this training arc in one shivering frame. Kael Mook states that acceptance differs from person to person, while Zhang Tai looks on with tense suspicion. The brothers march forward with heavy sacks, the rhythmic thumping of their steps serving as the soundtrack to their collective suffering. A muscular man struggles against ropes, sparks flying as he pushes his limits. Mujin walks calmly through the courtyard carrying his own bundle, while Nosak complains about who would be there at this hour because rest is apparently a myth. Zhang Tai leans against a bundle, watching with a sharp gaze, while a silhouette leaps through the air in the background. Someone asks what that is, because sudden acrobatics in a training yard usually mean either a master or a mistake. Mujin's eye glows with menacing red energy, the aura swirling around him like a storm warning. He lunges forward with a powerful strike, his foot slamming onto the floor with enough force to crack the foundation of the building itself. A voice cries out, "Young master?" in pure shock, because watching your boss turn into a glowing red-eyed demon is not part of the standard employee handbook. The divine demon has fully woken up, and everyone else is just trying not to get burned. A hand grips a rope with the casual confidence of someone who has already decided your fate. The tension in that grip isn't physical, it is the quiet promise of a very long, very painful afternoon. Jang Tae looks confused, which is fair, because the man standing before him just shifted from bored landlord to apex predators without moving a muscle. That red-eye glow isn't a special effect, it is the system warning you that you have aggroed the final boss. The floor tiles shatter under a single step, and Mujin lunges with a speed that makes the air itself complain. Jung Tae screams his name in pure panic, realizing too late that this sparring session was never optional. A blinding white light erupts, drowning out the courtyard in pure kinetic energy. Mujin's eyes widen, not in fear, but in the sudden, sharp realization that his opponent is actually trying to survive this encounter. He leaps, swinging that massive iron sword like it weighs nothing more than a feather duster. Jung Tae watches in horror, noting that despite their similar age, the gap in raw power is less of a gap and more of a canyon. Mujin doesn't even blink. He simply accepts the challenge with a cold, deadpan oax that carries more threat than any shouted ultimatum. The blue aura around him isn't just energy, it is the visual representation of your bad decisions catching up to you. The strike lands with a blur of motion that leaves Jung Tae questioning the very concept of martial talent. He wonders if this is what genius looks like, or if he has simply walked into a trap designed by a madman. Jung Tae is thrown backward, crashing into the ground with all the grace of a dropped piano. Mujin watches him fall with the detached curiosity of a scientist observing a failed experiment, while the other brothers look on in stunned silence. The scene shifts to a quieter moment, where Mujin stands calmly over his defeated opponent. A voice protests that they weren't watching on purpose, which is the universal lie of everyone who has ever been caught staring at a train wreck. Mujin stands there, sword in hand, looking entirely unimpressed by the display of violence he just authored. The rope snaps, the sack crashes, and the training begins in earnest, because mercy is for people who have time to waste. He leaps through the air, swinging that 100-kilogram slab of iron as if it were an extension of his own arm. Jung Tae stares, stern and shocked, realizing that this man does not fight, he simply imposes his will on physics. Mujin commands him to come forward, and the resulting impact sends a shockwave through the courtyard. The explosion of debris is not an accident. It is the punctuation mark at the end of a sentence nobody asked to hear. The blade strikes, slices, and erupts with enough force to send a pillar of energy into the sky. It is a display of power so excessive, it loops back around to being efficient, because why use two moves when one will destroy the landscape? Mujin clashes with a cloaked figure, their weapons meeting in a burst of white light. Jung Tae grins menacingly, enjoying the chaos, while Mujin remains utterly calm, his eyes sharp and focused on the task of dismantling his opponent. The stare-down is brief, broken only by the sound of Mujin reacting to a sudden movement. Jung Tae strikes again, fueled by rage and a desperate need to prove he exists, but the result is always the same: failure. Mujin delivers a blow that creates a brilliant flash of white light, ending the exchange instantly. He looks disappointed, noting that he knew it wouldn't work, but still felt compelled to try. It is the sigh of a teacher who has seen this mistake before. Jung Tae panics, screaming that his sword is broken, which is a bold claim considering he hasn't even drawn it yet. He lunges forward in a desperate attempt to salvage his dignity, surrounded by a swirling purple aura of pure anxiety. Mujin watches the red energy flash above him with zero concern. The clash intensifies, culminating in a powerful impact that shakes the very ground beneath them. It is violent, it is loud, and it is entirely one-sided. Mujin lets out a dismissive huff, telling Jung Tae that he is finally somewhat usable. He swings his massive sword in a powerful arc, noting that while progress has been made, the journey is far from over. Confidence, meet reality. An unnamed figure asks if he isn't too focused on looking straight ahead, a question that hangs in the air like a threat. Jung Tae screams in terror as Mujin looms behind him, his red eye glowing with menacing intent. The shockwave blasts him backward into the sky. A leg kicks forcefully, creating a bright impact flash, while another foot slides across the ground with sharp friction. Mujin blocks a powerful downward strike with his blade, creating a massive crescent-shaped shockwave that dominates the courtyard. A figure lands heavily, creating another shockwave, while Zhangtai grits his teeth in frustration. Mujin smiles confidently, letting out a soft breath as he prepares for the next phase. The training is not done, it has only just begun. His fist clenches around a metallic object, determination etched into every line of his face. Zhangtai smirks, looking over his shoulder with a confidence that feels earned, while two dark-robed figures stand at a distance, promising to rest well. Zhangtai grits his sword hilt, shocked by what he sees. Mujin looks upward, focused and intense, while a young man struggles on a training bar. Mujin watches with arms crossed, the epitome of a strict instructor who does not accept excuses. Men in dark uniforms punch sandbags in a rhythmic, brutal routine. Zhangtai delivers a powerful kick, his form perfect, while another figure breathes heavily, exhausted by the sheer intensity of the regimen. This is not exercise, it is survival. More figures pant and strain, their faces flushed with effort. Zhangtai pants heavily, his aggressive expression barely masking his exhaustion. The air is thick with the sound of heavy breathing and the smell of sweat. Two men observe the scene with bewilderment, noting that the trainees are doing this with rice sacks wedged between their legs. More recruits stagger across the plaza under massive weighted bundles, one of them gasping for air. The whole clan is in the meat grinder now. Donjok carries a heavy load, his face strained, while Zhangtai leans against a sack, looking stern. Donjok breathes heavily, distressed by the weight, but he does not stop. The burden is heavy, but the expectation is heavier. Mujin smirks, confident in his methods. He stands with hands on hips, watching as laborers carry sacks toward him across the sandy plain. He is the anchor, the center of gravity around which this chaotic new clan revolves. A woman smiles, amused by the spectacle. Two muscular men are tied to a wooden structure, told they will do this training every summer and winter. The wooden pillar stands alone under the bright sky, a silent witness to their suffering. Soyeon and Dojin stand side by side, determined and serious in their red robes. Mujin looks at them with a confident smile, knowing they are ready. In the rain, three figures stand in formation, including Mujin in his mask, ready for whatever comes next. Captured men stand bound in thick ropes, immobilized and helpless. A hand grips a cylindrical object tightly, and then Mujin grins, a menacing, red, aura-filled expression that promises no mercy. The treasure is not just an object, it is a weapon. Mujin stands poised with his massive iron sword, enveloped in a swirling red aura. Kael Mook and another brother carry massive bundles, their forms strong and steady. Three men stand in formation in the courtyard, united in purpose and discipline. A bald man swings a polearm, creating a shockwave of orange energy. A bearded man in a cloak speaks of arduous time becoming experience. The four brothers stand in a disciplined row, stern and ready, their training complete. Soyeon and Dojimbo respectfully, their hands pressed together. The pavilion lights up Sichuan, a shimmering arc across the sky. The massive red pagoda stands tall, a symbol of the clan's rising power and renewed prestige. Mujin shouts with determination, his ponytail flying. A muscular man punches a younger man, who takes the blow with gritted teeth. An unnamed figure praises the young master, acknowledging the progress made through blood and sweat. Elder Zhou Huanbong notes that Dojin has regained his old self, relieved. Mujin lunges forward, determined and focused. The elder smugs that Mujin has stabilized the clan, things are going well, and the madness seems to have faded. The roof glows under warm light, sometimes flaring with residual madness. Mujin meditates in a cross-legged position, a vortex of blue energy swirling around him. He is centered, calm, and building power from within. Lujin looks forward with a cold, deadpan expression, surrounded by blue aura. His face is partially obscured by the glow, his eye intense and focused. He wonders if this is the fourth day, lost in the depth of his cultivation. A glowing, pinkish-purple blade slices through the air, revealing that the folding screen was no ordinary artifact. The wall shakes under the impact, bathed in vivid magenta light. Mujin reacts to the sudden movement, the treasure finally unveiled. Decades before this tournament, the divine demon Zhongqian stood over a bleeding boy named Tang Sumun and casually broke whatever confidence the Tang clan had left. That boy never forgot. That boy became the Poison Emperor. Now that same Poison Emperor has crashed a children's sparring tournament in Sichuan, and the entire venue is one heartbeat away from a mass panic attack. Zhang, the genius who insulted Mujin's table, is currently re-evaluating every life choice that led him here. Mujin asks the old man about Tang Suman, and the Poison Emperor smiles like someone who has finally found the right address. 4 of the 5 great clans sat out the war against the divine demon, partly because there was no good reason to join, and partly because Zhongqian had already filed their leadership into a shallow grave. The Poison Emperor looks at Mujin and thinks the resemblance to his grandfather is uncanny, which means our protagonist is collecting powerful elderly fanboys faster than he can finish a meal. Mujin, meanwhile, just wants to know when the actual fighting starts, because he is hot, bored, and already mentally scheduling Zhang's eye-plucking. 2 old masters roll up to the tournament grounds and immediately name-drop Mujin's grandfather, the Flame Emperor, like that's supposed to make him nervous. Mujin stares back and says, flatly, that a huge storm is about to blow through Xichang, which is the most ominous weather forecast a martial arts protagonist has ever delivered at a children's tournament. But before we get to the storm, we need to talk about the furniture. The previous chapter ended with a fight inside a room full of decorative folding screens, and those screens did not survive the experience. Mujin stands in the wreckage, long black hair, deadpan expression, looking like he just finished redecorating someone else's living room with violence. He spots a small green vial on the ground, still glowing and leaking some foul-smelling gas, and his face contorts with the exact disgust of someone who just realized the folding screen was booby-trapped. Right next to it, he finds a wooden plaque, Mind-Severing Sword Art. Mujin immediately understands this is what the previous owners were working so hard to keep hidden, which means he is absolutely going to take it. He smirks, opens the manuscript, and his reaction is basically, mid. Compared to the techniques he invented in his past life, this thing is incomplete, but for the Flame Hua clan, it's perfect. The energy properties conflict with his own movement-based style, so he reasons it suits the clan better than it suits him, and with that, he decides the Mind-Severing Sword. Art is now the Flame Hua clan's signature sword art. He even reflects that having his energy core destroyed was lucky, because perfect nothingness let him cultivate freely, and then his eyes go red and he declares this technique belongs to the clan. Past life aura is just his version of a signature. Cut to the Fire Shadow twin elders, Mongun and Gak, holding some brown tablet and looking like 2 guys who showed up to the wrong job interview but are still going to commit to the bit. Mujin walks the manuscript over to Elder Zhou Huanbong and Dong Ji, who lose their minds over a high-level martial art being hidden inside furniture. Mujin tells them to copy it down if they want it and announces he is going to sleep. Time passes. The Yomhua clan warriors train with the Mind-Severing Sword Art and start sending opponents flying like fish that finally found water, which is a weirdly poetic way of saying they are now significantly better at hitting people. Dojin and Soyeon train with the same fierce confidence, and Mujin demonstrates the sword art by striking down multiple people at once. Kaol Mook, in particular, gets used as a training dummy with extreme enthusiasm. Mujin stands alone in the courtyard, sword on his back, smiling faintly as Soyeon charges at him screaming, "This is what a healthy family dynamic looks like in a Muram household, apparently." Masak finally tells Mujin that today is the Little Dragon Ascension Tournament, Xichang's biggest event, held once every 5 years, with a path to the Orthodox Muram tournament on the line. Mujin blasts his sparring partner into next week and lunges forward. He is furious. The elders didn't tell him sooner, accusing them of trying to enjoy all the good shows by themselves, which, fair, is exactly what elderly martial arts officials would do. The Yomhua clan delegation arrives at the tournament grounds in Sichuan. Mujin sits at a registration desk writing on a scroll while Soyeon cheers, "Finally!" and Dojin stands beside her looking like he has seen this movie before. Chief Steward Jang Si-yoon of the Baek clan confronts young Baek Seon, smugly noting the Yomhua clan skipped the last tournament. Dongji watches with the expression of a man already calculating how hard he can throw this guy. The elderly man with a glowing red eye taunts them about whether they can afford to eat after paying the entry fees. Dojin and Soyeon respond with matching fierce energy, while Mujin watches from a rooftop like a very judgmental gargoyle. Mujin wanders the town looking for the actual venue because apparently nobody gave him a map, and ends up crossing paths with a masked swordsman and a mysterious woman in a green cloak and conical hat. The woman approaches Mujin directly, and bystanders immediately notice something unusual about him, which, same. The man is a former demon emperor in a 23-year-old body carrying a sword he bought on credit. Then Gak, white hair, glowing red eye, the polite kind of threatening, asks Mujin to tell them where the tournament is if he finds it first. Mujin stares back in cold silence because he does not take requests from people who look like they eat poison for breakfast. The bearded companion and the woman in the green cloak talk behind Mujin, one of them noting that Mujin's behavior is a total mess too. The woman wonders aloud if this chaotic man could be someone important. Grandpa's not giving her a straight answer yet. Which brings us back to the hero panel. Two elderly masters name Mujin as the grandson of the Flame Hua clan's Hua Jute, and Mujin tells them a storm is coming through Zichong. The kids stand behind him looking ready to back up whatever nonsense he starts. Elder Joe clenches a bandaged fist, glowing with orange flame energy, while Mongoon stares him down. This is the first direct face-off with the Fire Shadow twin elders, and the temperature in Xishang just went up by about 50 degrees. Zheng Tai laughs mockingly that young Master Mujin has recovered from his madness, and Elder Joe says he is really looking forward to seeing the red flame art again. The siblings are treating this like a comeback stage, and Mujin is the main performer. An elderly man seizes a wooden staff in a threatening gesture, and Mongoon warns him to stop talking because his patience has limits. This is the polite version of, "I will end you," which is still pretty direct. The chapter ends on a flashpoint. Some swordsman draws a glowing blade and dares his opponent to pull out their sword, while Mujin stands nearby in chibi-style confusion, wondering how he got surrounded by this much drama. Chapter 22 opens with the aftermath of whenever that rooftop commotion was, and Zhang, the Bait Clan steward who has been asking for it since page 1, shouts that he will kill someone. An elderly man in green robes cuts in and tells Zhang that dressing well doesn't make a weak martial artist a master. Mujin asks why this old man keeps butting in, then shuts the argument down entirely, only for another older man to challenge him to prove his skills in the sparring ring. Mujin smirks and observes that there are always guys like Zhang everywhere. The elderly man in green robes studies him with the kind of thoughtful hum that says, "I have already decided something about you." The Yonhwa group is escorted into the tournament grounds, up a grand staircase, across a sunlit courtyard, toward a hall that looks way too fancy for a clan currently famous for debt and chopstick violence. Mujin reacts with surprise at the scale of the venue, because even a 70-year-old war criminal can be impressed by a nice courtyard. Servants have laid out an outdoor feast that looks like it cost more than the Yonhwa clan's annual budget. Dojin and Soyan gawk at the food like they have never seen a shrimp before. Mujin tells them not to overeat since sparring could start any time, while the elderly man in green robes sits nearby smirking like he knows exactly how this lunch is going to go. Mujin inwardly plots revenge against Zhang, complete with eye-plucking fantasies, while the elderly man in green robes asks if he can join their table. His granddaughter Hia questions why he keeps hovering around the Yonhwa group. Mujin tells everyone at the table to put the food down and not touch the tea or alcohol, then uses the frequency whispering technique to warn them privately not to eat until he has tasted it first. Hia smiles and pours the elderly man a drink, and he thanks her with a casual, "Thank you, Hia," which is a very normal grandfather move, except this grandfather is one of the 4 strongest people in the Central Plains. Mujin and the Poison Emperor sit at the table together as the tournament formally begins. A lone figure in brown robes is levitated into the air at the center of the courtyard, and an announcer declares this event is held once every 5 years. The head of the Siok clan of Sichuan proudly announces his title and welcomes everyone. Mujin's eye narrows with a red energy flare. He is using his heightened perception, and someone in the crowd reacts with a silent scream of shock. The Siok clan head recognizes the old man at Mujin's table and rushes over in panic. Then the revelation lands across the crowd. That is the Poison Emperor, Tang Sumun, one of only 4 people in the entire Central Plains to hold the title of Emperor. Dojin and Soyeon watch in wide-eyed confusion as the venue erupts. Jiang, the man who insulted Mujin's table, is now sweating through every layer of clothing, realizing he talked trash to the Poison Emperor's lunch companion. Mujin casually asks the old man about Tang Sumun, and the Poison Emperor smiles and says, "It brings back memories." We get a flashback of a red and black cloaked figure standing over a kneeling young Tang Sumun, the divine demon, casually breaking the confidence of the Tang clan. Narration explains that 4 of the 5 great clans stayed out of the war against the divine demon, partly because there was no good justification and partly because Zhongqian had already dealt with their leadership in advance. Mujin tells the Poison Emperor he is fine and asks when the sparring starts, because he is hot and wants to get on with it. The Poison Emperor studies him and thinks the resemblance to Mujin's grandfather is uncanny. 2 chibi children in red robes bow politely as the scene closes, because even former demon emperors need their younger siblings to look presentable at formal events. The Siak clan head recognizes the old man at Mujin's table and rushes over in full panic mode, because when one of the 4 emperors crashes your children's tournament, the correct response is definitely a brisk jog and visible regret. Then the revelation detonates across the courtyard. That unassuming old man in green robes is the Poison Emperor, Tang Sumun, and the entire venue collectively forgets how to breathe. Dojin and Soyan stand there in wide-eyed confusion, wondering why everyone just lost their minds over a grandfather who said, "Thank you for tea" 30 seconds ago. A black narration panel drops the lore bomb. In the entire Central Plains, only 4 people have ever held the title of Emperor. The 4 are the Wudang Sword Emperor, the Shaolin Fist Emperor, the 4 Martial Heavens Whip Emperor, and the Tang Clan Poison Emperor, which means Mujin is currently sharing a lunch table with 25% of the world's scariest retirement community. The narration continues, deadpan, that one of those 4 emperors has appeared at a small children's sparring tournament in Xishang, and there was no way the venue wouldn't be thrown into an uproar. Zhang, the genius who spent the morning insulting Mujin's table, now sits frozen mid-bite, finally understanding that his mouth wrote checks his entire clan cannot cash. He stammers out the Poison Emperor's name with the kind of cold sweat that only comes from realizing you trash-talked a man who could probably depopulate your bloodline before dessert. Mujin, entirely unbothered by the mass hysteria, casually asks the old man about Tang Sumun like he's asking about the weather. The Poison Emperor smiles and says the name brings back memories, calling his younger self that brat from back then, which is a very normal way to refer to your own trauma, if your trauma is the divine demon. We flash back to a red and black cloaked figure standing over a kneeling young Tang Sumun in a rocky wasteland. And if you have been paying attention, you already know that cloaked figure is Mujin's previous life's default skin. The narration explains that 4 of the 5 great clans, excluding the Namgung clan, stayed out of the war against the divine demon. Their official reason was that there was no good justification for joining the war, and their unofficial reason was that Zhongqian had already brutally dealt with their heads and main fighting forces in advance, which is the diplomatic way of saying he filed them under already handled. Young Tang Sumun kneels on the ground, clutching his arm in pain and distress, having received front-row seats to the Divine Demon's customer service seminar. Back in the present, the Poison Emperor tells Mujin it brings back memories, and Mujin has no idea that the memory is literally him. Mujin brushes off any concern and asks when the sparring starts, because it is hot, and he would like to get to the part of the day where someone gets punched. The Poison Emperor studies him and thinks that the more he looks, the more Mujin resembles his grandfather, the Flame Emperor, which is a beautiful misread because the resemblance is actually 1 lifetime older than that. 2 chibi children in red robes bow politely as the scene closes, because even a former demon emperor needs his siblings to look presentable while he accidentally collects an Emperor tier fan club. Chapter 23 opens on the tournament venue in Sichuan, a sprawling ancient city where someone is about to ask Mujin if he is also planning to participate. Mujin responds with genuine confusion because nobody told him there was a participation option, and this clan's communication strategy remains a disaster. Meanwhile, Mujin has apparently decided to spend the intermission serving skewers of meat and vegetables, because if the tournament does not start soon, he will simply become the catering department. Jiang, now fully transformed from smug antagonist to apology speedrunner, shouts that he sincerely apologizes for whatever happened earlier and did not know who he was dealing with. A hand slams a bowl onto the table hard enough to splash liquid everywhere, because the Bei clan has decided that subtlety is not their strategy today. A smiling woman in traditional robes bows while holding a sword, which is the wuxia equivalent of saying, "I come in peace," while visibly armed. Our protagonist, a man with sharp features and red eyes, smirks with the confidence of someone who has already decided the tournament is his personal stage. Baek Sahyan of the Baek clan formally announces the start of the Little Dragon Ascension tournament in the courtyard, and the political theater finally gets its opening curtain. Hua Soyeon, however, is already eating without concern for the ceremony around her, because she understands that a tournament cannot start until she has finished her snack. A sinister woman with glowing red eyes and a wide smile declares that someone will become the first offering, and the Baek clan's plan to make an example of the Yomo siblings becomes uncomfortably clear. Sion, the Baek clan's young fighter, rages at Soyeon after she defies him, and she responds by leaping forward with blue energy crackling around her and striking him hard enough that he actually groans. She follows up with a threat that his arms will not be the only thing broken, which is a very aggressive way to introduce yourself at a children's tournament. The fight erupts in full force. Soyeon dodges a powerful red energy punch from Sion, then trades blows in a rapid exchange that tears a massive red shockwave across the arena. Soyeon delivers a devastating kick to Sion's face, sends him reeling, and then floors him with a blue energy blast that has Dojin staring up from ringside in genuine shock. Sion gets back up with blood spraying from his face, screaming, "How dare you!" with the exact energy of someone who has never been humbled by a smaller opponent before. He escalates to lethal intent, screaming that he will really kill her, and unleashes red energy-charged strikes that turn a children's sparring match into an attempted murder. Soyeon finds herself cornered with no room to dodge, while Sion's camp orders him to finish her and show no mercy. Elder Joe and Steward Do shout for her to get out of there, and Dojin screams in rage from the stands, surrounded by blue energy that says he is about to launch himself into the ring. Soyeon unleashes a high side kick with full force. The sinister figure closes in, and Mujin grits his teeth with intense focus. Everyone has reached the decisive moment at once. Sion screams as a fiery energy blast erupts, a punch connects, and the entire group is caught in a violent explosion. The fight between Soyeon and Sion reaches its destructive climax right as the act ends. This is the moment the entire tournament realizes the Yoma clan did not come here to be a joke. Soyeon's foot connects with Sion's face. A blue energy blast follows him to the floor, and Hua Dojin stares up from ringside like he just remembered his sister is not actually a civilian. But let's rewind, because this whole disaster starts with Baek Sahyan of the Baek clan formally opening the Little Dragon Ascension tournament while Soyeon is already halfway through a snack. The Baek clan has plans. A woman with glowing red eyes and the smile of someone who definitely owns a knife collection announces that someone will become the first offering. Sion, their young fighter, rages at Soyeon for speaking to him the wrong way, and she answers by leaping forward, crackling with blue energy and striking him hard enough that he actually groans. Then she tells him this will not end with just his arms being broken, which is a very aggressive way to introduce yourself at a children's tournament. From the stands, Mujin quietly asks Elder Joe whether the Baek clan has always been this hostile, and Elder Joe confirms the bad blood runs deep. They clashed with the previous clan head, took in defectors, and grew fat while the Yoma clan declined. The fight erupts in full force. Soyeon dodges a red energy punch, trades blows in a rapid exchange, and a massive red shockwave tears across the arena like the tournament budget just got reallocated to property damage. Back to the hero beat, kick to the face, blue blast to the floor, and Dojin looking up as the energy descends toward him with the expression of a boy who now understands family dinners are going to be different from now on. Sion gets back up with blood spraying from his face and screams, "How dare she?" which is the exact energy of someone who has never been humbled by a smaller opponent before. Soyeon grins, points at his bleeding nose, and observers note her basics were personally taught by Elder Jo Hwanbong, which is the closest thing this tournament has to a product placement for elder abuse. Sion's face glows with fury and he screams he will really kill her, turning a children's sparring match into attempted murder with all the subtlety of a man who has never been told no. He charges with glowing red fists, A bloody sword blow sends someone flying nearby, and the arena starts looking less like a tournament and more like a war crime with seating. Soyeon dodges everything he throws, leaving Sion screaming about what is with that brat and calling her a slippery loach, which is the most desperate insult a losing martial artist can deploy. She smirks with absolute composure while explosive impact panels show her hitting back hard. The audience is now watching a child bully a teenager who thought he was the protagonist. Then the trap closes. Soyeon finds herself cornered with nowhere left to dodge. Sion's camp screams to finish her and show no mercy, and Elder Joe and Steward Do shout for her to get out of there. Dojin screams in rage from the stands, surrounded by blue energy that says he is about to launch himself into the ring, while a blue blast slams into Soyeon's position from above. Soyeon unleashes a high side kick with full force. A sinister figure with glowing red eyes closes in, and Mujin grits his teeth in intense focus. Every party has reached the decisive moment at once. Sion screams as a fiery energy blast erupts, a punch connects, and the whole group is swallowed by a violent explosion. The fight between Soyeon and Sion reaches its destructive climax. Chapter 24 opens with a man screaming at the referee to throw the blue pouch. The match suspension signal fires into the sky, and Soyeon lands one last kick anyway, because rules are suggestions when you are this far ahead. The bloodied opponent laughs hysterically as her own wooden sword finally breaks mid-fight, and a shadowy figure comments that, like always, her mouth is the problem. Soyeon, still defiant, tells them to do whatever they want later and bring all the warriors they want, while Mujin strains nearby and someone gasps what the hell is happening. Then Soyeon unleashes a powerful energy attack. A shadowy creature descends from the sky with a blue symbol, and an elderly elder stares in sweating shock as Sion is driven to the ground, bleeding from the head. Mujin punches the air with a red energy wreath fist in celebration. An elderly man laughs heartily, and an angry elder demands to know why the referee did not stop Soyeon after the blue pouch was thrown. The act pivots. An elder sends Hwa Dojin off to compete. Dojin departs with a wooden sword, and a figure in a distinctive hat reacts with a questioning sword. Sok Chuyong shouts and unleashes a powerful glowing fist strike, but Dojin dodges the incoming energy attack encounters. Then a blurred figure swings a glowing blue blade with enough force to create a wave of energy. A woman delivers a sweeping downward slash. Blue lightning bolt symbols dominate the sky, and elders gasp while spectators react with astonishment. Dojin's finishing technique just dropped the temperature in Sichuan by 10 degrees. The crowd erupts. Dojin won, and an elder remarks that he never thought the Flamehua clan had swordsmanship like that. Mujin smiles and explains that what Dojin displayed is not merely a sword technique with good efficiency, which is the kind of understatement that only makes sense from a man who invented half the martial arts in his last life. Then Mujin holds up a scroll and a thick book against the sky. Incredible energy pours out of the secret manual, and he announces that anyone who wants to learn the mind-severing sword art will experience remarkable growth in martial arts. Chief Steward Do shout for people to line up. A crowd forms to register, and onlookers burst out laughing that he is recruiting sect members in the middle of this event. An angry elder seethes at how that arrogant bastard dares to act this way, and adds that he would retaliate if only the Poison Emperor were not attending, which is the most honest thing a villain has said all day. The Poison Emperor looks on calmly, his mere presence preventing open retaliation. And the act ends with the clear understanding that Mujin did not just win a tournament, he turned it into a clan recruitment drive under imperial protection. So there is our protagonist, holding a scroll in a thick book up against the sky like he is about to drop the most aggressive Kickstarter a martial arts clan has ever seen. The secret manual is glowing, energy is pouring out of it, and onlookers are realizing this is not a prize ceremony, this is a job fair with a legendary drop table. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. The act actually starts with Soyeon's match already in its final form. Jang Si-yoon of the Baeklan screams for the referee to throw the blue pouch, the match suspension signal fires into the sky, and Soyeon lands one last kick anyway because rules are suggestions when you are this far ahead. She unleashes a powerful energy attack. A shadowy technique descends from above with a blue symbol, and an elderly elder stares in sweating shock as Sion is driven to the ground bleeding from the head. Mujin punches the air with a red energy-wreathed fist in pure celebration, some elders laughing like this is the highlight of his year, and an angry official demands to know why the referee did not stop Soyan after the blue pouch was thrown. The Hua clan side erupts in celebration. Soyeon walks off and sticks her tongue out at the Beck faction like a professional, and Mujin is just beaming with the energy of an older brother who has decided this is now his favorite sibling. Jang Se-yoon of the Baek clan, meanwhile, is having the worst time at the victory party. He shouts that Mujin's behavior is tacky and begs him to preserve his dignity, which is a losing battle the moment Mujin discovered public relations. Soyeon brags that she was already whooping Sion without even using the clan's secret art. An elder laughs like she just delivered a stand-up set, and the whole table is one loud family dinner where the only etiquette rule is winning. Observers note that amid all the commotion, the only thing anyone actually cared about was Kwamujin and the Poison Emperor sitting at the same table. The tournament has become a background event for the real show. Then an elder sends Dojin off to compete. Dojin departs with a wooden sword, and some guy in a distinctive hat asks sword, like he has never seen a child with a blade before. So Kryong shouts and throws a glowing fist strike. Dojin dodges the incoming energy attack and counters, and a blurred figure swings a glowing blue blade with enough force to create a wave of energy across the arena. A woman delivers a sweeping downward slash. Blue lightning bolt symbols dominate the sky. Elders gasp, "What was that just now?" And Dojin's finishing technique just dropped the temperature in Sichuan by 10 degrees. The crowd erupts, Dojin won, and an elder admits he never thought the Flamehwa clan had swordsmanship like that. Mujin smiles and explains that what Dojin displayed is not merely a sword technique with good efficiency, which is the understatement of someone who invented half the martial arts in his previous life. And now we are back at the hero panel. Mujin holds up the mind-severing sword art manual. Incredible energy pours out of it, and he announces that anyone who joins the Flamehwa clan can learn it and experience remarkable growth in martial arts. This is not a tournament victory speech. This is a Series A funding round with a sword curriculum. An elder and a dark-haired figure shout for people to line up. A crowd forms to register, and onlookers burst out laughing that he is recruiting sect members in the middle of the event. He truly lives up to his reputation of being crazy. A rival elder seethes that the arrogant cur would already be dead if only the Poison Emperor were not attending, and the Poison Emperor just sits there calmly, his presence functioning as diplomatic immunity for the most shameless hours stunt in Xichang history. Here is the image the act wants burned into your brain. A child whose hand has just been mangled in a children's tournament asking his older brother to tie that ruined hand to a wooden sword so he can go back in and finish the job. The Seok clan steward points forward like a man ordering takeout and announces they are putting Seok Yoso into the bracket, while Mangun and Gok lurk in the background scheming about the power vacuum the Flamehwa clan left behind. The narration explains the Seok and Baek clans have been manipulating the Little Dragon Ascension tournament for years, and the visual is just two kids bonking each other with wooden swords while grown men decide their futures. Enter Seok Yoso, Diankong sect. Young master, wooden staff in hand, smugness dialed to 11, looking like he has already written his victory speech and framed it. His first opponent points out the tournament only allows participants up to age 14, and Yoso insists he is 14 with the confidence of a man whose growth chart is definitely under audit. A hulking shadow with glowing red eyes looms behind the kid because subtlety died before this arc began. Observers call the upcoming match a finals match in advance, which is tournament commentary for the bracket got rigged so hard the actual final is redundant. The Fire Shadow twin elders are ringside cheering for Hua Dojin with the sincerity of people who bet against him, and the Seok clan steward watches like a man waiting for a stock to mature. Dojin, when asked if he wants revenge, basically says no, he wants to win. Ioso grins with glowing red eyes and declares he is going to make it, pointing forward like he is casting a death flag on someone else's behalf. Yeoso opens with the 12 radiant sword strikes, a pink energy barrage that looks like a forest exploded, and Dojin is immediately forced onto the defensive, while observers identify the Diankang fast sword style as genuinely annoying to deal with. Yoso taunts him that blocking will get his skull smashed, which is not how you talk to a child unless you are actively trying to become a flashback. The two trade red and pink energy blows across the courtyard. Yoso's camp screams for him to show the lowly bastards what real swordsmanship looks like, and Yoso grins while targeting Dojin's joints with the patience of a man who was told to cripple, not conquer. The exchange gets nastier. Pink blades, red counters, motion blur everywhere, and then Yoso lands the strike he was waiting for, a joint hit that drops Dojin with a scream and a spray of blood. Yoso announces he was waiting for exactly that opening, because this entire fight was a trap disguised as a duel. Dojin goes down hard, and the tournament suddenly has a medical emergency, dressed as a bracket result. Mujin steps in, grabs the staff, and pulls Dojin out of the arena like a cornerman stopping a boxing match. He tells Dojin to show him the hand first, then resets the bone joints with the bedside manner of a field medic who has done this before breakfast. Soyeon screams in terror. Dojin screams in pain, and then, mid-scream, Dojin asks Mujin to tie his injured hand to the wooden sword so he can return. This child has decided that losing is not on the schedule. Mujin looks at him, says all right, and straps the ruined hand to the sword. It is the most disturbing equipment upgrade in the series so far, and it is happening to a preteen in a public park. Yoso is visibly surprised Dojin came back, because he expected tears and begging. Dojin glares back in fury and asks what he just said, and the energy in the courtyard shifts from a mismatch to a grudge match. Yoso lunges laughing and announces that a new pair of crippled brothers is about to be born in Sichuan, which is the kind of line that makes the audience want to see him lose twice. Chapter 26 picks up with that same threat hanging in the air, a new pair of crippled brothers, born right here as ordered by whoever is running this bracket from the shadows. We flash back to the pre-fight briefing. Mujin asks Dojin if he wants to win, and a rival girl declares she has to take first place to restore her clan's honor, because apparently everyone in this bracket is fighting for generational trauma. Mujin's coaching is simple and terrifying. The instant Yoso executes a sword technique, Dojin is not to hesitate. The panel zooms in on a single determined eye with the command, "At that moment, don't hesitate," and you can feel the trap spring-loading. Yoso commits. Dojin charges in. The two clash with glowing red energy swords in the wide shot, and the finish is one clean window, one opening, one answer, one strike. Dojin lands the decisive strike. Yoso's eye goes wide with shock. The larger opponent falls, and Dojin lunges forward with the expression of someone who just proved a point he did not know he was allowed to make. Dojin stands there with wide, shocked eyes and says, I did it! While Elder Joe, Steward Du, and Soyeon shout, "Good job!" from the sidelines like a family that has never once considered therapy. Yoso grabs his chest and snarls that Dojin is a filthy little insect for pointing a sword at him, and Dojin responds with, "Chick, was that too weak?" Which is an absolutely unhinged comeback from a child with a bandaged hand tied to a stick. Yoso screams that Dojin is not leaving alive, but a red projectile smacks him in the eye mid-threat. He howls, "Who the hell threw this at my face?" And Mujin, the same Mujin who just coached a child through reconstructive combat, steps up and admits it was him. The scene cuts to a smug, long-haired man declaring he has already gained everything there is to gain and sees no need to go further, while an elder bows and says, "Yes, young master." Someone got what they wanted from this tournament, and it was not the children. Then the tone shifts hard. Two masked figures arrive with nameplates, Hong Yohang of the Social Sect, the Dragon of Shichong, and the Death Black Crow, whom Mongoon identifies as a dangerous killer who must be removed. Ju Sugang of the Crimson Sword Sect follows, laughing that, of course, the moment his sect stepped in things got interesting, which is villain. Speak for, "We are about to make the tournament look quaint." Back at the clan estate, the courtyard is littered with broken wood and four very ugly brothers facing intruders. A blue-eyed man says, "Oh, my bad," then immediately asks if a mere servant is raising his voice at him. Masak is on the ground being stepped on. The four demon brothers arrive at the ruined gate, find an intruder already pinned underfoot, and one of them laughs that the enemy did not gather warriors but clowns. It is the most accurate threat assessment in the episode. The brothers confront the intruders in force, noting that the uninvited guests do not seem to be bowing. A purple-eyed man asks what they are doing right now, and a cloaked figure with glowing red eyes raises a weapon. The situation is deteriorating beautifully. One intruder squints and says he feels like he has seen the brothers somewhere before, and Darkclaw slowly recognizes them, because yes, these four ugly men have been memorable everywhere they have gone. Onlookers are staring in pure shock as a foot comes down on some poor fool's face, and standing over him are four menacing black-robed figures, one of them holding an axe while fiery symbols erupt behind them like the world's least subtle welcome mat. This is how the Manhwa clan home security system arrives when you forget to RSVP. But before the Axe brothers got home, we were still at the tournament, where a voice announces that a new pair of crippled brothers is about to be born in Sichuan, because nothing says children's martial arts competition like premeditated lifelong disability. The tournament opponent Yoso is finishing a threat, and Hua Dojin is about to make him regret every word. Mujin pulls Dojin aside for the kind of pre-fight briefing that would get any normal coach arrested. He asks the kid if he wants to win, then lays out the exact window to exploit. The moment Yoso commits to a sword technique, Dojin is not allowed to hesitate. This is not advice. This is a trigger condition. Yoso commits. A sword technique unleashes a glowing energy blast, and the panel zooms in on Dojin's eye with the command, "At that moment, don't hesitate." The trap springs. Two fighters clash with glowing red energy swords across the courtyard, and Dojin drives straight through the opening his brother mapped out like a speedrunner, hitting the exact frame. Dojin lands the decisive strike. Yoso, the bigger opponent, goes down hard while Dojin lunges forward with wide, shocked eyes and stammers, I did it!" Elder Zhou Huanbong, Steward Du, and Soyuan shout, "Good job!" from the sidelines, like a family that is fully committed to violence as a bonding activity. The kid just executed a bracket upset and a medical procedure on the same schedule. Yoso grabs his chest and snarls that Dojin is a filthy little insect for pointing a sword at him, which is rich coming from someone who entered the bracket with a maiming agenda. Dojin responds with, "Chih, was that too weak?" A line no child should be able to deliver after tying his own broken hand to a wooden sword. A red projectile smacks Yoso in the eye mid-threat, and he howls, "Who the hell threw this at my face?" Mujin steps up and admits it was him. He just forfeited the match by throwing his pouch at a child. On the surface, this looks like poor sportsmanship. Under the surface, it is even poorer sportsmanship, and that is why it works. Yoso is now publicly humiliated by a projectile wallet in front of every clan in Xichang. The scene cuts away from the tournament to a smug, long-haired man declaring he has already gained everything there is to gain and sees no need to go further. An elder bows and says, "Yes, young master." Someone got exactly what they wanted from this event, and it was not the children still bleeding in the courtyard. Back at the Manhwa estate, the real party has already started without the hosts. Two masked figures walk through the village with the confidence of people who read the clan's schedule wrong on purpose. Nameplates drop. Hong Yohang, Dragon of Sichang, Sosol Sect. A man with a smug face who looks like he has never been told no by a door. Mongoon, red hair and eye patch and absolutely no indoor voice, declares that the other arrival is a dangerous menace who must be killed, the Sosol Sect's Death Black Crow. Then Ju Sugang of the Crimson Sword Sect laughs that, of course things got interesting the moment his sect stepped in. We have gone from a children's tournament to a multi-sect home invasion in one commercial break. The intruders have already breached the gate. A muscular man surveys the damage with contempt. "Humph, what a gate," and a dark-haired man lunges in with smug aggression before bodies start slamming to the ground. These are professional clowns, and the estate is their circus. The courtyard is littered with broken wood when the four demon brothers finally roll up. A blue-eyed intruder says, "Oh, my bad," then immediately asks if a mere servant is raising his voice at him right now. Masak is on the ground being stepped on. The brothers watch this with the expression of men who just found their favorite toy broken by someone else's kid. A hand grips a shoulder with the kind of impact sound that means the conversation is over. The four demon brothers arrive at the ruined gate, and one of them laughs that they do not eat meat every day. Another notes that a woman looks like the second brother's type, which is the least relevant observation at a home invasion in history. One brother looks at the destroyed gate and asks, "The gate looks like this?" Then a foot comes down on an intruder's face and the man groans. The brothers are not shocked. They are inventorying. This is customer service for people who did not read the return policy. The four demon brothers confront the intruders in force. One observes that the guests are not bowing. Another laughs that they did not gather warriors but clowns. A purple-eyed man asks what they are doing right now, and a cloaked figure raises a weapon. The situation is deteriorating beautifully. Then one intruder squints and says he feels like he has seen these four somewhere before. Yes, the intruders have seen the four demon brothers before, probably from a distance, probably while losing. A cloaked figure with glowing red eyes raises his weapon anyway, because some people need to relearn a lesson in real time. The brothers are happy to provide the refresher course. And now we are back at the hero panel, the foot on the face, the axe in hand, the fiery symbols. The four demon brothers have turned a home invasion into a curb stomp seminar. Onlookers are asking what is going on, and the answer is that the Manhwa clan's hours department has arrived and they are not accepting walk-ins. A masked assailant strikes at a young man in traditional robes, but the real focus is Hua Mujing standing nearby with glowing red eyes and a smile that has ended factions. Mungun reacts with pain and surprise as the assault lands, not because he cares about the victim, but because he is realizing the math on this raid no longer works. Mungun, the red-haired fire shadow twin, is yelling now, not in command, in alarm. A man in red robes is wrenched upside down in agony while someone bellows Ju Sugang's name. The raid command structure is collapsing faster than a folding screen under a sword slash, and the intruders are starting to understand they are not the protagonists of this scene. A close-up catches a glowing red eye asking, "That old man is?" And then a shadowy, imposing figure with glowing white eyes and ethereal blue energy steps out of the darkness. The Poison Emperor has clocked in. The dialogue nearby mentions raiding an orthodox sect, which is the kind of career goal you reconsider when the Poison Emperor is your receptionist. The Poison Emperor unleashes a torrent of green energy, filling the air with glowing kanji that probably translate to, "You are all fired." Two witnesses strain and recoil, and Elder Joe with Dojin and Soyeon flinches as the killing intent erupts around them. The children are getting a very direct lesson in what the top 1% of the martial world feels like when it is annoyed. A bystander screams that the killing intent is so terrifying the ground itself feels like it is shaking. The panel formally introduces the old man, one of the strongest figures in the current Murim, the Poison Emperor. This is not a title you earn by being reasonable at dinner parties. This is a title you earn by making entire sects update their wills. The Fire Shadow twin elders crumble. One is struck with immense force and thrown to the ground. The other stammers, "We were wrong. Please forgive us, Poison Emperor." These two men arrived as professional murderers and have been reduced to crying children in approximately 12 seconds. The Poison Emperor advances anyway, because mercy is a second semester course. The twins scream in terror as the Poison Emperor, eyes glowing green, tells them coldly, "So you truly wanted to test my martial prowess and the Tong clan. Fine, today I'll use your bones as a drinking snack." That is not a threat, that is a menu item. He has announced his intention to turn their skeletons into bar food, and he sounds relaxed about it. The old man glares forward with the kind of stern expression that makes you want to apologize for things you did in a previous life. A man with a dark mark on his forehead screams in rage and fear. Then a heavy object slams down, a fiery symbol descends on the gathered martial artists, and a bright explosion fills the courtyard. The Poison Emperor is not negotiating, he is redecorating. Several figures stand in the orange-hued arena as the explosion emanates from the center. A woman gasps with 4 exclamation points because regular punctuation cannot contain what she is witnessing. The Poison Emperor and Hia stand side by side indoors, while Mujin stands outside surrounded by a red fiery aura. The two men are running parallel destruction tracks, and the intruders are standing on both rails. An extreme close-up on a narrowed eye tells us someone has made a decision. One of the 4 demon brothers laughs that intimidating those guys was so fun, he got carried away. Another shouts for Masak to hurry up and leave. The children are disappointed they have to go. They wanted to watch more, which is either healthy desensitization or a long-term parenting red flag. Gak, the white-haired fire shadow twin, lunges with a furious punch, but a hand grips bloody red cloth and a burst of intense red energy overwhelms him. He is staggered, bleeding, and suddenly very aware that the man he is fighting has 70 years of experience in making people like him fall down. Hua Mujin holds a furious gawk and informs him that what they tried to steal is not something you can just find anywhere. Then adds that standing by and allowing it makes Gok an accomplice. The Poison Emperor, grinning like a debt collector who just found a new client, demands a compensation payment of 10,000 niang. This is no longer a fight. This is an itemized invoice. The twins balk. What kind of absurd extortion is that? And someone exclaims that Gak's subordinate is talking back to the eldest young master. Mujin, red-eyed and smug, watches as a warrior lunges forward in rage. Then Mujin casually raises the compensation figure to 20,000 nyang after the subordinate is found guilty, because inflation is real, and so is his pettiness. A kneeling man confesses yes, he did it, he is sorry, he has committed a sin worthy of death, which is a lot of words for, I was just following orders. Lujin lunges forward and roars that the price is now 20,000 niang. Mongun, the red-haired twin, kneels in terror before a black-clad figure and cries out in fear. The negotiation has reached its final form, pay or be the payment. Mongun screams his apology to Warrior Hua, vowing this will never happen again, the same vow every defeated villain makes right before it happens again. Mujin's red energy strikes him down. A shadowy figure with glowing red eyes prepares the finishing blow, and the courtyard fills with the red impact characters that mean you should have read the room. A dark figure is struck, black particles fly, and a man with his hair tied back looks up in surprise as shadowy tendrils lash out around him. Then Mujin stands there with glowing red eyes and a smug expression, the red energy still curling off him like steam from a fresh cup of revenge. The intruders have been processed. A figure walks across the tiled floor. A high-heeled shoe crushes a shadowy mass, and someone exclaims, "Ah yes, understood!" with the energy of a man who has just signed a contract he did not read. The survivors have learned the terms. The estate is quiet again. The folding screen is probably fine. The Poison Emperor dismisses a kneeling subordinate with, "You have until tomorrow, get lost," while Hia watches silently from behind him. In the courtyard, an elder with a scroll oversees workers carrying lumber, signaling that the clan is already moving on to repairs, paperwork, and pretending this was a normal Tuesday. Mujin stands in red and orange robes observing teal energy explosions outside a building, while the Poison Emperor and Hia sit together for tea indoors. The old man remarks warmly that the tea aroma is especially deep today, because nothing improves the flavor of a beverage quite like turning two assassins into a cautionary tale first. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you become the Poison Emperor's grandson. The Poison Emperor dismisses the last kneeling survivor with a casual, "You have until tomorrow, get lost," which is the kind of exit interview that makes you update your resume in one language and your will in another. Haya watches in the background with the serene expression of someone whose grandfather just turned a home invasion into a tax write-off, while workers start carrying lumber like this was always a renovation day. Mujin stands on a balcony in red and orange robes, observing the teal afterglow of violence outside while the estate pretends to be peaceful, and the narration quietly adds, "And that wasn't all." Inside, one of the four demon brothers is already holding a book and addressing the crowd, because nothing says we just survived an assassination attempt. Like an immediate staff meeting with an Axe-adjacent hours department. The Poison Emperor and Hia sit down for tea, and the old man smiles like he did not just threaten to use human bones as bar snacks, remarking that the tea aroma is especially deep today. Hia smiles with her eyes closed. Someone asks if the old man is not coming by too often, and the courtyard answers by looking suspiciously pleasant, which, in this family, is never a good sign. Figures walk down a long staircase, others slip across rooftops, and Mujin stands in the courtyard with his hands on his hips, already knowing that the next appointment has arrived without a calendar invite. Two men carry a wooden beam while an elder apologizes for the intrusion. Mujin stares forward with the patience of a man who has already killed the schedule, and a hand reaches for soup just before everything goes sideways. Gok, the white-haired fire shadow twin, erupts out of nowhere with glowing green spectral blades, because apparently one humiliation per day was not enough for this pensioner. Mujin counters with a blinding white energy blast from his fist. Gak cries out in shock, and Mujin's face says, "What with the polite confusion of a man who has already filed this under Tuesday?" The fight widens as Mujin deflects green energy in close quarters. Someone screams, "Grandfather's in distress," and a young woman panics hard enough to start firing green blasts into the general concept of the problem. Green energy detonates across the courtyard. Warriors clash swords. A cloaked figure asks why the two of them are fighting, and Kale Muck charges in roaring like a bald meteor that skipped breakfast. Mujin raises a clenched fist. Teal energy streaks outward, and the Poison Emperor unleashes dark smoky energy while looking deeply unimpressed that guests are still arriving unannounced. A swordsman in dark robes with red and gold trim swings hard. The panel names the technique, 9 Swords Third Form, and a young man screams in terror because that is the appropriate response to a heritage technique appearing in real time. A cloaked figure with glowing blue eyes swings a massive sword. The blast spreads across the palace cityscape, and the waterway lights up with ethereal blue light. Someone just paid the entire scenery budget for this fight. The palace overlooks the glowing water. The blast is still expanding, and the Korean sound effect in the original is doing the work of 3 orchestras. Our boy has officially upgraded from deader to landscape redecorator. Mujin examines the situation and realizes the powder in the tea was not poison, it was something else entirely, while the Poison Emperor keeps throwing green energy around like a man who does not accept interruptions during his visit. The Poison Emperor mutters as, "I thought." Mujin stares at him with determination and then asks aloud what every viewer is thinking. "Old man, you know this sword technique?" A hooded figure reacts with shock. Mujin smirks and calls the elder absurd, and Gok doubles over clutching his stomach while a hand pours tea in the background. Multitasking remains the clan's signature combat style. The elder sits with a cup and admits he never thought he would see that sword art again, but Mujin cuts him off with the smug courtesy of a man who has questions and no time for nostalgia. The scene flashes back to 2 young disciples in a field, a warrior raising a golden ornate sword and a small boy being told to stand aside. This is not Gok's memory. This is the elder's, and it is older than the current piece. 2 cloaked figures face off in a vast mountain landscape, while a young boy and an older boy spy from behind boulders, and the child whispers, "Grandfathers," with the exact tone of someone about to inherit a very specific trauma. Back in the present, Gak and Mangun clash swords again. Green energy erupts from the darkness, and the Fire Shadow twins prove that being humbled once is not enough to teach them spacing. The Poison Emperor lunges with a green strike, then unleashes a direct energy blast, because he has decided that this family visit will end with or without the furniture intact. An older swordsman deflects projectiles with blue energy. Gak strikes a younger man with visible rage, and the courtyard becomes a demonstration of why the 4 emperors do not get invited to casual sparring. Gak lunges again. 2 figures clash in a forest, flash of blue energy, and a warrior prepares a technique called Key Destruction, which is less a move name and more a customer service policy at this point. An elder with hollow eyes conjures green energy. A figure stands amid swirling darkness, and a blinding blue slash cuts through it all. The panel budget for this fight is being spent like there is no tomorrow. The Chi Destruction strike lands. An elder glares and mutters, "Ch," and a scarred man screams in rage. The fight has reached the phase where everyone is just emoting at each other with weapons. A woman watches from a distance as a figure unleashes a blue energy blast, and a young man murmurs, "Peerless! 9 swords!" while a hand thrusts a glowing blade forward. The name is finally being spoken by someone who recognizes what it cost. A cloaked figure lunges, a demonic sword falls embedded in the grass, and Gak kneels blood-stained with his hands outstretched while a figure looms above him. The white-haired twain has been processed, and the refund policy does not apply. The flashback returns. The child narrator says that after it happened, the only word he remembered was the one tied to that sword, and an elder sits indoors holding a cup while a swordsman in red stands over 2 figures in green. Mujin tells the elder that the swordsman is not officially his master, for now, and the elder's scarred eye narrows at that pause, because everyone in this room knows for now is doing a lot of heavy lifting. The elder bows and apologizes again for attacking him. Mujin smirks and asks if he knows of the swordless mark, and Hia echoes the phrase while a helmeted figure muses about traces without a sword. The episode just pivoted from extortion to family archaeology, and nobody is leaving until we see the receipts. Our hero opens this act with the romantic energy of a man who has already filed his marriage paperwork in a previous lifetime and is not doing it twice. Mujin flatly announces he has no intention of marrying, and then adds the quiet knife, at least not in this life. That pause carries more backstory than most characters get in 3 seasons. The Poison Emperor processes this about as gracefully as a grandfather who just had his entire succession plan thrown into a wood chipper. Someone in the room, operating on pure internet brain, shouts that maybe Mujin is into men, and Mujin has to actively explain that no, that is not what this life meant. We have reached the no actually portion of the negotiation. Hiei storms off with a dignified humph of a woman who has just been rejected by a man whose entire personality is unpaid debts and war crimes. The Poison Emperor, meanwhile, sits there like a man reading patch notes he does not approve of, muttering that Mujin simply has not opened his eyes to that side yet. He then threatens to bring the younger granddaughter next time, because apparently this family shops for sons-in-law the way the rest of us comparison shop graphics cards. The old man declares flat out that there is no way he is letting Mujin slip away. This is not a marriage proposal anymore. This is a recruitment pipeline with a wedding veil taped to it. A large man with an eye patch watches from behind like the world's most judgmental bodyguard, and he leaves with the energy of someone who will definitely be in a group chat about this later. Mujin walks away from the tea table diplomacy and into the courtyard where actual business is happening. He asks if everyone is gathered, and the answer is 230 people have shown up for the Yoma clan's warrior selection test. That is not a recruitment drive. That is a small convention that did not read the fine print. He addresses the crowd with a motivational speech of a man who has already decided most of them will not make it. He says he does not care why they came, tells them to throw themselves into the clan, and promises a reward for anyone who endures. This is corporate onboarding if the hours department could also break your ribs. Then he introduces the 4 martial arts instructors, and the camera gives us the full lineup of the 4 demon brothers standing against a bright sky like the world's least photogenic boy band. Chil Mook, Dongji, Jongtai, and Nosak. Their debut singles probably called We Will Make You Carry Rice. Chil Mook steps up as senior instructor and immediately orders every recruit to carry a full sack of rice. The recruits look like they just realized the job description did not mention agriculture. This is the warm-up, by the way. The actual training has not started yet, and already people are questioning their career choices. The recruits erupt in disbelief. A whole sack of rice? How are they supposed to lift that? Chil Mook stares back with his glowing blue eye and the patience of a man who has heard this question before, usually right before he offered the alternative. The alternative, naturally, is a match. The rice suddenly looks like the easy option. Some genius immediately tries to quit, announcing he does not want to die early. A silhouetted instructor blocks the exit and asks who said he could leave, adding the detail that Mujin never promised anyone would leave in one piece. The Yoma Clan Hours Handbook is apparently 1 page long and written in blood. The training begins in earnest. Recruits scream, sacks are hoisted, and the courtyard turns into a conditioning montage set to the sound of regret. This is not a martial arts academy. This is a body transformation speedrun where the only stat being rolled is endurance, and the tutorial boss is a grain shipment. Mujin watches from above like a project manager who has finally automated the parts of his job he did not want to do. The instructors push the recruits without mercy. Red sound effects fill the air, and somewhere a man bows deeply enough to suggest he has already accepted his new life as a sack-hauling instrument. Then the tone shifts. An injured man staggers into the estate shouting that someone needs to report to the Flame Hua clan immediately. He collapses at the gate, and the name he manages to get out is Master Hua Mujin. Nothing ruins a productive training day quite like a bleeding messenger with urgent news. Mujin stands alone on a balcony overlooking the city as a giant shadowy figure looms behind him because this series cannot let a dramatic moment happen without also implying an incoming raid boss. The messenger's warning lands, and Mujin's face says he has already mentally rescheduled his entire afternoon around violence. Cut to the enemy side. A cold-eyed figure tells a worried elder they're just moving a little earlier. A bandaged man lies in bed nearby, and a horned helmet villain laughs in the corner like he read the script and knows he is not the final boss. The antagonist faction has decided to speedrun their own schedule, which is never a good sign for the protagonist's weekend plans. The scene is dark, the dialogue is ominous, and the bandaged figure in bed is giving off strong, "We have already dispatched the hit squad" energy. Someone says preparations are underway. The horned helmet man laughs. If you have ever played a game where the cutscene cuts to the villain base right before a field ambush, you know exactly what kind of Tuesday this is becoming. Back at the estate, Dojin and Soyeon are crouched low and peeking through a doorway like two children who absolutely should not be peeking through that doorway. Soyeon is grinning. Dojin is asking, with the reasonable anxiety of a younger brother, whether they really need to see people die. Soyeon's response is basically that she will go alone if he will not come, which is the most older sibling threat ever committed to a manhwa panel. Dojin caves, because that is what younger brothers do when older sisters threaten independent action. They slip out into the twilight, past the Grand Temple complex, following the very group Mujin just assembled to deal with the threat. The children have decided to attend the field trip to actual combat. Parental supervision is going to have questions about this. 4 masked figures in dark robes advance through the dusk village, a sinister blue energy symbol glowing ahead of them like a bad omen rendered in neon. The threat Mujin was warned about is already moving. The children are already following. The episode has officially shifted from marriage comedy in Brook Camp to why are there preschoolers at the ambush. Dojin is standing over a fallen Jungtai, pointing at a peak-level predator and screaming the same insult a second time, while Soyeon smirks beside him, and the caption admits what we are all thinking: they are screwed. We will get to how a 12-year-old and his sister ended up as the only obstacle between a nun and a monster, but first, the forest. Chapter 30 opens on a forest so peaceful it might as well be sponsored by irony. Then, Mujin and the 4 demon brothers lunge into a waiting ambush from the Death Forest faction before the background music even finishes fading in. The assassins immediately realize their briefing was wrong. One of them screams that they are too fast. Another shouts for them to stop. And the 3 blue-robed figures holding position in the dark are adorable, because holding position against Mujin is not a strategy, it is a final wish. From a hiding spot nearby, Dojin and Soyeon watch with wide eyes and matching shock. They whisper the exact sentence every child who has ever snuck into an R-rated movie eventually whispers, "So this is real combat." Mujin is not holding back. His sword hilt glows red, his eyes are locked in that deadpan murder mode, and the blue energy blasts filling the cavern are mostly his. The Death Forest faction brought numbers and are leaving with a very different headcount. Kaol Mook delivers a punch that rearranges someone's face. A cloaked figure with glasses checks a fallen opponent like he is reading a receipt. Bodies get hurled with red demonic energy. The 4 demon brothers are not just winning, they are processing invoices. The fight peaks in a spray of blood, motion lines, and Mujin emerging from dark, swirling energy with the smile of a man who has done this so many times, he no longer needs a warm-up. The Death Forest faction came for a recovering madman and found a war criminal doing cardio. Dojin and Soyeon stay frozen in their hiding spot, finally understanding that the stories their brother told them about the Murim were not bedtime fiction. The stench of blood reaches them. It is not a metaphor. It is a sensory detail that will sit with both of them for a long time, assuming they survive the rest of the field trip. The cleanup is just as brutal as the fight. A bald brother chokes an assassin with the enthusiasm of a man who enjoys his work. Kaol Mook glares forward with his fist clenched and his blue eye glowing, and the remaining Death Forest fighters suddenly remember they have other appointments. Mujin interrogates a surviving assassin, and the man cracks immediately. He confesses they came on commission from the Cheonghwa merchant group, which is exactly the name Mujin expected and exactly the name that makes his eyes glow red with administrative rage. An armored witness marvels that this monster slaughtered dozens of men all by himself. Mujin tells Kaol Mook to let the survivor go, because dead messengers do not deliver warnings. The man stumbles away with a bloody forehead and a very specific message for his employers. Then Mujin discovers his siblings in the aftermath, and the art style collapses into chibi comedy so fast, it gives the viewer whiplash. Soyeon bows her head and apologizes, admitting she just wanted to see actual combat, with a bump on her head that suggests the forest already voted on this decision. Mujin's response is not the soft "you are safe now" line. He points into the trees at the corpses and warns them that if the enemy had spotted them first, they would be the ones lying there. The comedy evaporates. The lesson lands. He points at the fallen cloaked bodies and tells the 2 small children, now rendered tiny and chastened, that this is the Murim. Death is always lurking right behind you. It is the truest thing anyone has said to them in this entire series, and they needed to hear it before their curiosity got them killed. The children answer yes, Mujin, in the small voices of people who have just had their worldview updated by force. The full moon overhead is beautiful and indifferent, which is pretty much the Marum in a single image. The next morning the group departs, and the forest briefly flashes back to Gok unleashing a fiery palm strike, because the Fire Shadow Twin contract is apparently still active and still annoying. Bu Shoyan has not stopped sending people, she has just diversified her vendor list. Two small figures in red robes stare through fire and smoke as a glowing eye looms overhead. The caption addresses the children directly. The Fire Shadow Twins' destructive power has now been demonstrated in close proximity to the siblings, which means the stakes have moved from family politics to keeping the children away from the burning forest. Morning actually arrives. The sun shines through the leaves, the group separates, and Jung Tai walks ahead with Dojin and Soyeon on the forest path. Someone decided the third eldest demon brother was the appropriate babysitter for two children who have already proven they cannot be trusted near violence. Back at the estate, an enraged elder shouts for servants and warriors to search every corner. A panicked attendant spirals in the courtyard calling for the young master and young lady, while Masak searches the grounds and two blue birds perch peacefully overhead. The chaos is total. The birds do not care. On the forest path, a cry for help rings out. Soyeon immediately glares toward the sound with the expression of a child who has decided this field trip needs more content. They find a lecherous martial artist harassing a young nun, because this forest apparently has multiple quest markers. Jung Tai freezes, correctly judging that this opponent is too dangerous for the children to engage. Dojin, however, has just spent the night learning that the Miram is full of people who need punching, and his impulse control has not caught up to the lesson. He shouts filthy, shameless scum at a man whose glowing red eyes and monstrous screams say peak-level fighter in every dialect. A panicked voice confirms the obvious. If they fight here, they will die. Jung Tai stalls for time, laughing awkwardly and claiming they are just passing by, which is the kind of lie that only works in stories where the villain has a sense of humor. The Crimson Moon Sword Master does not. He calls Jung Tai a pathetic disappointment, tells him to get lost, and then drops him with one move. Peak-tier Cultivation does not negotiate with babysitters. Jung Tai hits the ground, and the Crimson Moon Sword Master stands over him like a man who has just cleared an obstacle from his schedule. Dojin refuses to abandon him, pointing and shouting the same insult again, because if you are going to die, you might as well die with your moral principles intact. Soyeon smirks beside him, which is either sibling solidarity or a complete lack of survival instinct. The final caption bubble screams that they are screwed, and honestly, fair. Dojin and Soyeon have gone from sneaking out to watch combat to becoming combat's next menu item, and the only person who can fix this is currently running a recruitment boot camp several miles away.